Nearly 1,000 years ago, there lived a man who solved mathematical problems that European scholars couldn't crack for another 500 years after his death. He created a calendar more accurate than the one we use today, with an error of less than 1 second per year. His poems about life and death are still translated into dozens of languages. But that's not even the most remarkable part. Omar Khayyam lived in an era when the wrong words could cost you your life. Yet he fearlessly challenged religious dogma. He refused to choose between science and poetry, logic and emotion, truth and social approval. The 9 lessons of his life aren't just a biography of a medieval sage. They're a manual for anyone who wants to think freely, live consciously, and create something meaningful in a world where everything changes rapidly and the rules of the game are rewritten on the fly. My friend, get comfortable. In this video, you'll see the most comprehensive breakdown of Omar Khayyam's philosophy and teachings. And before we begin, subscribe to this channel. Part 1. Master multiple disciplines. Omar Khayyam was a remarkable intellect who mastered a diverse range of fields: mathematics, astronomy, philosophy, and poetry. In contrast to today's tendency toward narrow specialization, Khayyam recognized the profound interdependence of knowledge. He believed that true understanding arises from identifying the relationships that link different areas of study. His educational philosophy was groundbreaking in his era and remains deeply relevant now. Rather than confining himself to one domain, he embraced a holistic pursuit of knowledge. And this choice altered the trajectory of intellectual history. In the realm of mathematics, Khayyam made major strides by solving cubic equations using geometric techniques. He also offered fresh interpretations of Euclid's parallel postulate, challenging ideas that would not be reconsidered in Europe for several hundred years. He even examined structures akin to what we now call Pascal's triangle, doing so more than 600 years before Pascal himself. For Khayyam, mathematics was not an abstract discipline. It was a practical language through which he decoded the natural world. As an astronomer, Khayyam achieved what still seems astonishing today. He calculated the length of the solar year very accurately. His calculations differed from modern scientific measurements by less than 1 second. He also developed the Jalali calendar, which incorporated a highly accurate 33-year intercalation cycle. This solar calendar became the basis for the Persian calendar still in use today. Just imagine, nearly a millennium ago, with limited instruments, he created a timekeeping system more accurate than the Gregorian calendar Europe would later adopt. But Khayyam's intellectual pursuits did not end with science. He authored 6 philosophical treatises that explored existence and its relation to universal concepts. The renowned scholar al-Zamakhshari honored him with the title Philosopher of the World, a testament to his penetrating insights into reality and the human condition. His philosophical writings displayed the same meticulous reasoning found in his scientific work, but applied to the great questions of purpose and being. Then there is his poetry. His famous collection of quatrains, the Rubaiyat, delves into themes of mortality, joy, and the fleeting nature of life, all while engaging in profound existential reflection. These were not merely lyrical musings, but carefully crafted meditations on what it means to be human. His verses continue to resonate across cultures and centuries, exemplifying how scientific logic and poetic expression can enrich one another. The key lesson here transcends academic achievement. Engaging with multiple fields cultivates what we might call intellectual cross-pollination. Mathematical reasoning can inform musical composition, historical knowledge can sharpen business strategy, and an appreciation for visual art can enhance scientific innovation. Khayyam believed that mathematics reflected a divine structure within the universe, showing us that even technical disciplines can lead to spiritual understanding. Reflect on how this might apply to your own work. If you're in business, exploring poetry might offer unique insights into human behavior that no management textbook can provide. If you're an artist, learning about physics could unlock new dimensions of creative expression. If you're a scientist, reading philosophy might refine the kinds of questions you ask and deepen your grasp of their significance. Khayyam did not treat knowledge as isolated silos. The astronomer within him shaped the mathematician influenced the philosopher enriched the poet, Each area of expertise informed the others, creating a comprehensive worldview that no single discipline could offer alone. This seamless integration of knowledge enabled him to perceive patterns and relationships that specialists, confined to one field, might completely overlook. In our modern society, we're often encouraged to specialize early and intensely, but Khayyam's life suggests a more expansive path. Nurture curiosity beyond traditional boundaries. Look for links between disparate disciplines and allow each new insight to reshape your understanding of the others. Such an approach won't scatter your focus, it will deepen it. It will provide a fuller, more nuanced comprehension of both the world and your place in it. You'll arrive at insights unreachable through narrow expertise, and you'll cultivate a kind of wisdom that emerges only when you perceive the broader tapestry that connects all human knowledge. Part 2. Embrace the power of the present. Few lessons from Omar Khayyam resonate as deeply or remain as relevant as his enduring call to fully inhabit the present moment. In his Rubaiyat, Khayyam returns again and again to the transient nature of time, urging us to live now, not later. This was no abstract musing or poetic indulgence. Rather, it was a clear-eyed, rational response to the human condition. Khayyam grasped a truth that contemporary psychology is only beginning to explore in depth. He recognized that our well-being and sense of fulfillment are directly linked to our ability to remain grounded in the present. Khayyam reflected on the fleeting passage of time and the certainty of death, not to inspire fear, but to awaken us to the urgency of living. To him, the past had already vanished, and the future was unknowable. The present moment, brief though it may be, is the only time we truly possess. This insight has the potential to fundamentally change how we engage with life. Khayyam challenges us to stop delaying our participation in life's experiences. One of his most quoted verses beautifully illustrates this mindset. Sitting beneath a tree with bread, wine, and a dear friend, he finds paradise in life's simplest, most immediate pleasures. This isn't reckless indulgence. It's a profound understanding that the essence of life reveals itself when we are fully present. He warns that we often overlook the richness of our lives because we're mentally distracted, either projecting into the future or dwelling on the past. Think about how much of your own life has been spent chasing future happiness or reliving past regrets, instead of fully embracing today. Khayyam's awareness of the present wasn't just spiritual, it was deeply informed by his scientific work. As a brilliant astronomer who calculated the length of the solar year with remarkable precision, he had an intimate understanding of time's flow and its limits. But rather than letting this knowledge weigh him down, he let it deepen his appreciation for each passing moment. To Khayyam, human consciousness was nothing short of miraculous. To be aware, truly and completely, even for a moment, was among the greatest achievements possible. This perspective becomes even more remarkable when placed against the backdrop of the era in which he lived. Khayyam's world was one of political instability, religious tension, and social unrest. Yet instead of retreating or growing bitter, he chose to find joy and meaning wherever he could. He cultivated his own sense of paradise, not through escape, but through a mindful presence with beauty, friendship, intellectual pursuit, and simple delights. What he understood intuitively is now supported by modern neuroscience. When we are truly present, the brain performs at its best. Stress levels drop, emotional well-being improves, and creative thinking flourishes. Yet Khayyam had no access to MRI scans or scientific journals. He knew this through direct, lived experience. He understood that being present isn't just a technique, it's the bedrock of wisdom, and the depth of our attention shapes the depth of our lives. Turning this insight into action requires consistent effort. Each morning, take a few moments to tune into your immediate reality. Notice what you see, hear, smell, and feel. Throughout your day, make a habit of returning to the present rather than getting swept up in anxious thoughts about what's next or regrets about what's past. When you eat, truly savor each bite. When you speak with someone, give them your full attention. When you walk, feel the ground beneath your feet. These small, intentional practices can turn ordinary moments into profound experiences, offering genuine peace, clarity, and joy. Part 3. Question everything, even your own beliefs. Omar Khayyam lived during an era dominated by religious rigidity and societal conformity. Yet he upheld a fierce commitment to independent thought. He consistently challenged accepted norms and beliefs, often at significant personal risk. His life stands as a powerful example of intellectual bravery in the pursuit of honest inquiry. Khayyam recognized that truth is not something handed down through tradition or authority. It must be uncovered through critical thinking, empirical observation, and a readiness to revise one's views when new evidence emerges. This relentless quest for truth not only made him a pioneering scientist, but also a controversial figure within his own culture. Through his poetry, Khayyam fearlessly questioned accepted doctrines concerning the afterlife, divine justice, and destiny. His skepticism wasn't driven by rebellion for its own sake. Rather, it was a sincere response to claims that couldn't be validated through direct experience or rational argument. This deep commitment to intellectual integrity was perilous in the world he inhabited. But for Khayyam, the pursuit of truth outweighed the comfort of conformity or public approval. Some historians believe he may have even faced accusations of heresy, yet he refused to silence his authentic voice to appease societal expectations. Khayyam's scientific achievements mirrored his philosophical outlook. In mathematics, he pushed beyond the standard methods of his time, developing original techniques for solving complex equations. In the field of astronomy, he was unsatisfied with the inaccuracies of existing calendars and spent years conducting precise observations to create more accurate systems. He didn't blindly follow established authorities. Instead, he tested their conclusions against his own insights and evidence. This critical mindset also defined his philosophical journey. Although he studied under scholars who were followers of the renowned thinker Avicenna, Khayyam did not adopt their teachings without scrutiny. He forged his own philosophical path, drawing from a wide range of disciplines and thinking independently about life's fundamental questions. He understood that no thinker, no matter how revered, is immune to error, and that every generation must engage in its own critical reflection. To question the beliefs we inherit requires both a willingness to admit we could be wrong and the resilience to withstand the discomfort that often comes with challenging the status quo. Intellectual humility allows us to see the limits of our knowledge, while emotional courage helps us face the social consequences of thinking differently. Khayyam endured both the isolation that often comes with independent thought and the resistance of those whose beliefs he unsettled. Yet he recognized that the alternative, living according to untested assumptions, was a betrayal of the mind's true purpose. In our present time, his message is perhaps more urgent than ever. We live in a world flooded with information, where opinions and so-called facts pour in from every direction. In such a climate, it's tempting to either accept everything at face value or to dismiss it all with cynicism. Khayyam's life offers a better approach, to evaluate each idea critically, using reason and evidence as our guide. This means cultivating the habit of asking more meaningful questions. Rather than asking whether a belief feels familiar or aligns with what we already think, we should ask whether it stands up to scrutiny and is supported by credible evidence. Rather than trusting a claim because it comes from a respected source, we should focus on whether its logic holds up. Rather than discarding ideas simply because they disrupt our worldview, we should explore whether they might actually deepen or broaden our understanding. Khayyam would urge us not only to question external authorities, but also to turn that same lens inward. What beliefs about purpose, success, love, or fulfillment have you absorbed from your upbringing, culture, or society without critically reflecting on them? If you had been raised in a different place or era, would you still hold those same views? These questions are often uncomfortable, but it is precisely this discomfort that leads to real wisdom and a truly authentic life. Part 4. Balancing logic and emotion. One of the most remarkable qualities of Omar Khayyam was his rare ability to blend analytical precision with emotional and spiritual depth. He was neither a detached rationalist who disregarded human feeling, nor a purely emotional artist uninterested in logic. Rather, he embodied a profound harmony between intellect and emotion. He showed that thought and feeling need not be at odds, that they can complement each other to form a deeper understanding of life and a more meaningful way of being. This synthesis was what made him an extraordinary thinker and an equally powerful poet. Khayyam proved that it's possible to think with clarity while also feeling with depth. As a mathematician and astronomer, he approached complex problems with discipline, structure, and keen observation. His breakthroughs in solving cubic equations were the result of many years of persistent and methodical experimentation. His work in astronomy, too, required sustained logical inquiry and an unwavering commitment to empirical evidence. He recognized that some truths reveal themselves only through the rigors of disciplined thought, and that unchecked emotion, while valuable, can cloud judgment if not tempered by reason. Yet his poetry unveils another side of him, a man profoundly in touch with his emotions, unafraid to voice uncertainty, awe, love, and sorrow. His meditations on the fleeting nature of life reflect not only intellectual insight, but also deep emotional resonance. When he wrote of love, companionship, and the natural world, he wasn't merely theorizing. He was speaking from heartfelt, lived experience. Khayyam understood that intellect alone can lead to a dry, detached existence, devoid of the richness that feelings bring. His genius lay in refusing to separate the mind from the heart. His scientific awareness of the vastness of the universe didn't make him cynical. Instead, it heightened his emotional appreciation for the fragility and beauty of human existence. His capacity to marvel at life, to cherish friendships and moments of wonder, inspired his desire to understand the world with greater clarity. He didn't isolate reason from emotion. He allowed them to interact, enriching one another and creating a more complete approach to life. This delicate balance was especially clear in the way he explored profound philosophical issues. When he questioned doctrines about destiny or the afterlife, he did so with neither icy detachment nor emotional defiance. His reflections emerged from both rational scrutiny and sincere emotional questioning, a desire to believe only what resonated as true both logically and personally. His skepticism was fueled by reasoned analysis as well as a heartfelt rejection of ideas that seemed to reduce human freedom and dignity. For readers today, Khayyam offers a timeless lesson. In a world that often insists we choose between intellect and emotion, we can and should choose both. In many professional settings, we are taught to silence emotion and rely exclusively on logic. In other areas of life, we're encouraged to prioritize feelings and disregard rational thought. Khayyam's life suggests that either extreme is incomplete, and that genuine wisdom arises from the fusion of reason and emotion. In practical terms, this means cultivating both analytical thinking and emotional insight when making key decisions. For instance, when considering a job offer, weigh not only the tangible aspects like salary or career growth, but also the emotional dimensions. Does the role feel purposeful? Do you respect the team you join? In personal relationships, evaluate both the way someone treats you and whether you feel a true emotional bond. When grappling with ethical decisions, think through the consequences logically, but also listen to your intuitive sense of what is morally right. Khayyam's example also illustrates that this dual engagement of mind and heart enriches creative and problem-solving work. Whether you are crafting something new, solving complex issues, or building meaningful relationships, a combination of rational clarity and emotional authenticity yields stronger, more impactful results than either one alone. Use your intellect to recognize patterns, to strategize, and to navigate complexity. At the same time, let your emotions point you toward what really matters, what inspires you and gives your work significance. Ultimately, blending reason and emotion is not a compromise. It is a powerful unification that amplifies your full potential as a human being. Part 5. Embracing uncertainty without abandoning hope. Omar Khayyam lived during a time marked by political turmoil, religious strife, and profound philosophical ambiguity. Despite this, he managed to hold on to both intellectual integrity in the face of the unknown and emotional strength amidst the unpredictability of life. His perspective on uncertainty offers vital guidance for navigating the complexity and rapid changes of our own era. Instead of feigning certainty he didn't have, or becoming immobilized by doubt, Khayyam chose a thoughtful middle path, one that empowered him to make informed decisions while remaining receptive to new insights and shifting circumstances. This careful balance between humility and confidence stands out as one of the most valuable and applicable lessons he left behind. In his poetry, Khayyam often explored the deep, unsolvable mysteries of human existence. He wrestled with timeless questions. Is there life beyond death? Are our choices truly free or governed by fate? Does the universe possess a deeper meaning or purpose? Rather than clinging to false assurances or succumbing to despair over these unsolvable issues, he faced them with honesty. He directed his attention toward what could be observed, understood, and acted upon. This kind of intellectual integrity liberated him from both the pressure to feign understanding and the stagnation that often comes with extreme skepticism. Khayyam's scientific pursuits reflected a similar comfort with the limits of knowledge. As an astronomer, he recognized that even the most accurate measurements were still approximations, always subject to refinement through future discoveries. As a mathematician, he was aware that the soundest proofs are grounded in assumptions that might one day be challenged. Yet this acknowledgement of uncertainty did not deter him from making real advancements. He moved forward with the best evidence available, all while keeping an open mind, ready to revise his views if more compelling information arose. This mindset embodies what we might today call epistemic humility, the understanding that all knowledge is, at best, partial and subject to change. Khayyam recognized that absolute certainty is often a mirage. The wisest response to life's most complex questions, he believed, is to admit when we do not know. But he also understood that acknowledging the unknown doesn't mean we're powerless to act, or that every possibility is equally plausible. We can and should make sound judgments based on the evidence at hand, while staying receptive to new facts that might reshape our views. In his own life, Khayyam endured the personal uncertainties brought about by political instability and shifting social landscapes. The support systems that enabled his scholarly work were unreliable, and at times his ideas put him at odds with influential figures. Yet he did not allow frustration or rejection to drive him into isolation. Instead, he adjusted to the changes around him while staying true to his core values, his commitment to truth and sincere self-expression. He understood that while we may not control the forces around us, we do control how we respond to them. This insight holds particular relevance today, when rapid change and overwhelming information often leave us feeling unmoored. Every day we are bombarded by contradictory advice and perspectives on health, relationships, politics, careers, and more. This overload can push us toward two extremes: rigid certainty or paralyzing indecision. But Khayyam's life points to a wiser, more sustainable path. First, we must learn to separate what we can know with reasonable assurance from what remains open to question. Some truths are supported by strong evidence, others are matters of genuine debate, and some things simply lie beyond the reach of current knowledge. Second, we should make choices grounded in the best available information, yet remain willing to revise those choices when new evidence comes to light. Third, we ought to direct our efforts toward what is within our sphere of influence, rather than obsessing over the countless variables we cannot control. Most importantly, Khayyam reminds us that uncertainty need not destroy our capacity for hope, nor does it prevent us from discovering meaning and fulfillment. Even if the ultimate questions about existence elude us, we can still embrace beauty, cultivate deep relationships, expand human understanding, and leave behind works of lasting significance. Life's meaning may not be handed to us by some external authority, but we have the power to create it through our actions, our bonds with others, and our enduring commitments. Not knowing the final answers does not diminish the reality of love, connection, discovery, or creativity. These human experiences remain vivid and meaningful, even in a world without guarantees. Part 6. Choosing Truth Over Approval. Omar Khayyam consistently prioritized intellectual honesty over the comfort of social acceptance, even when doing so came with serious personal consequences. His unwavering dedication to seeking the truth, regardless of whether it was accepted, convenient, or popular, serves as a lasting example of what it means to live with integrity and authenticity. In today's world, where social media and collective opinion often compel us to echo widely held beliefs, Khayyam's legacy reminds us that real wisdom demands the strength to think independently and speak truthfully. For him, truth was not a lofty ideal to be admired from a distance. It was a principle that guided his daily life, shaped his thinking, and defined his interactions with others. Throughout his life, Khayyam boldly voiced ideas that questioned both religious dogma and common beliefs about life, death, and fate. His poetry openly challenged doctrines concerning divine judgment, destiny, and the afterlife, core tenets of the prevailing religious ideologies of his time. These were not shallow provocations or passing remarks. They were carefully considered positions grounded in deep philosophical inquiry and logical reflection. Khayyam was fully aware that expressing such views could bring hostility, controversy, and even danger. Yet he consciously chose to speak the truth as he saw it, rather than remain silent. This decision was especially daring in the political and religious climate of 11th century Persia, where expressing dissenting views could result in losing support from patrons, facing social ostracism, or even enduring persecution. Many of his contemporaries concealed their doubts or limited themselves to repeating ideas that would earn them favor and advancement. Khayyam, however, resisted these temptations. He refused to dilute his convictions to gain approval or protect his reputation. His scientific pursuits reflected the same fearless devotion to truth. When his astronomical calculations clashed with widely accepted theories, he published his findings exactly as they were, without altering them to conform to conventional expectations. Similarly, when his mathematical discoveries contradicted established norms, he shared his new methods openly, despite the risk of challenging authoritative voices in the field. He understood that genuine progress, especially in science, requires a willingness to let evidence lead the way, even when it unsettles the status quo. This same principle guided his personal conduct as well. Rather than telling people what they wanted to hear or presenting a false version of himself, Khayyam engaged in relationships rooted in honesty. He surrounded himself with friends and students who appreciated truthfulness over flattery and who were unafraid to wrestle with challenging questions. Although this approach may have limited the number of people in his social circle, it ensured that those relationships were grounded in sincerity and mutual respect. The difficulties of choosing truth over social acceptance were real for Khayyam, and they remain just as relevant in our time. Today, we face ongoing pressure to express only those opinions that align with prevailing sentiments, whether among friends, coworkers, or online audiences. Many of us feel the need to appear more polished, more certain, or more conventional than we truly are. We often sidestep difficult conversations or avoid controversial topics to keep the peace. But Khayyam's life shows that these compromises, while understandable, ultimately erode our integrity and limit our potential for true understanding. When we choose social approval over truth, we slowly become disconnected from our genuine thoughts and emotions. We begin to confuse what we're expected to believe with what we actually believe. We shape our work, our research, and even our closest relationships around what is acceptable rather than what is real. The alternative path requires what might be called intellectual courage, a readiness to engage deeply with complex issues and to express our honest conclusions, even if they go against the grain. This doesn't mean being rude or tactless, nor does it require sharing every opinion at every opportunity. Instead, it involves being truthful about our beliefs and experiences without pretending to be certain when we're not, or agreeing with things we silently question. It also means asking sincere questions, not questions meant to impress others, but ones that reflect a real desire to understand. In practical terms, this might look like acknowledging when you don't fully grasp something instead of feigning expertise. It might mean expressing real skepticism about commonly accepted views rather than going along with them for the sake of fitting in. It could also mean sharing the challenges and imperfections of your own life rather than curating a flawless image. These choices demand courage because they expose us to the possibility of criticism, misunderstanding, or rejection. But they also create the space for the kind of honest insight and meaningful connection that Khayyam held as life's highest value. Part 7. Uniting Reflection with Action. Omar Khayyam exemplified the harmonious fusion of deep contemplation and purposeful action, demonstrating that these two forces are not opposites but essential partners in a meaningful life. He was not only a philosopher who probed life's profound mysteries, but also a practical intellect who contributed significantly through calendar reform, mathematical innovation, and service in governmental roles. Khayyam's ability to merge thoughtful introspection with tangible achievements enabled him to apply wisdom to real-world issues and ground his philosophical reflections in everyday experience. His life challenges the common misconception that intellectual inquiry and worldly engagement must exist in isolation. As both a poet and a thinker, Khayyam devoted much of his life to exploring questions of existence, mortality, and human purpose. His Rubaiyat reflects a mind deeply engaged in self-examination and unafraid to confront life's most difficult questions. Yet his philosophical pursuits never led him to detach from worldly affairs or treat them as trivial. On the contrary, his reflections enhanced his practical decision-making and amplified his effectiveness in professional domains. When Sultan Malik Shah entrusted him with the complex task of reforming the calendar, Khayyam brought a rare combination of technical mastery and philosophical depth. He recognized that developing a precise calendar went beyond solving mathematical equations. It involved navigating cultural, religious, and societal dimensions that shaped how people perceived and organized time. His philosophical grasp of time's significance strengthened his capacity to measure and structure it practically. The resulting calendar was so precise that it endured for centuries and left a lasting legacy in the development of timekeeping systems still in use today. Similarly, his mathematical achievements were rooted in a larger philosophical quest for truth, beauty, and understanding. Khayyam did not treat mathematics as a sterile or purely technical discipline. Instead, he approached mathematical problems as gateways to deeper insights about the structure of reality. His use of geometry to solve algebraic equations showcased his ability to bridge different areas of knowledge and apply ideas from one field to challenges in another. This holistic approach led to breakthroughs that a narrow technical focus might never have uncovered. His poetry, too, reveals a seamless interplay between philosophical thought and active participation in life. These verses are not lofty speculations divorced from the world, but expressions born from real experience. He wrote about friendship, politics, career struggles, and intimate relationships with the voice of someone who had lived through them all. The authenticity of his reflections was a direct result of his engagement with life's complexities. Such integration demanded discipline in managing time and a refined ability to shift between different cognitive and emotional states. Khayyam learned how to move fluidly between concentrated analytical work and moments of quiet reflection. He understood that both persistent effort and thoughtful pause were essential to achieving creative breakthroughs. Neither on its own could suffice. His daily rhythm likely included rigorous study in mathematics and astronomy, responsibilities at court, meaningful social interactions, and dedicated periods of solitude. For those of us navigating the challenges of modern life, Khayyam's example offers vital guidance in avoiding the fragmentation that often defines our days. Too often we isolate thinking from doing, reserving reflection for rare spare moments and treating our work as a mechanical function devoid of personal meaning. This division weakens both our contemplative life and our ability to act effectively. We miss insights that arise from pausing to understand our experiences and forgo meaningful action when we disconnect our efforts from our inner values and sense of purpose. To better blend contemplation with action, start by building intentional pauses into your routine. Take time regularly to reflect on your activities and experiences. Rather than jumping from one task to another, ask yourself what lessons you're learning, what recurring patterns are emerging, and how your current efforts align with your broader goals and beliefs. Consider how your daily work is shaping your understanding of who you are and the world around you. Find opportunities to bring insights from your reading, conversations, and inner reflections into the practical challenges you face. Likewise, allow your real-world experiences to inform your thinking on abstract or philosophical issues. Your interactions at work can reveal truths about human nature. Ethical dilemmas can deepen your understanding of moral philosophy, and your day-to-day observations can help you notice patterns that relate to larger social and existential themes. Like Khayyam, you can let your worldly involvement enrich your intellectual and spiritual insight, while allowing your reflections to strengthen your capacity for action. This kind of integration doesn't demand radical changes to your schedule. Rather, it calls for a shift in mindset, a greater attentiveness that enables thought and action to continuously inform and enhance one another. Part 8. Nurturing inner freedom in the face of outer limitations. Throughout his life, Omar Khayyam contended with a range of external pressures, political turbulence, rigid religious structures, and the weight of societal norms that sought to restrict his freedom of thought and action. Yet remarkably, he cultivated a deep internal liberty, crafting his own philosophical outlook and dedicating himself to intellectual exploration. Even amid these challenges, Khayyam found ways to express his true self and voice his thoughts with sincerity. His ability to sustain inner freedom while navigating the constraints of his environment provides enduring insight into how we might preserve our autonomy and integrity when facing difficult circumstances. This inner freedom was not a retreat into fantasy or denial. It was a grounded, practical capacity that enabled him to engage with restrictions creatively rather than be defeated by them. Khayyam lived through an era marked by political instability, where the favor of patrons could vanish overnight, and scholarly positions often carried significant political risk. After Sultan Malik Shah, his key supporter, passed away, Khayyam fell from favor and was even compelled to undertake a pilgrimage to Mecca to affirm his religious allegiance. Despite these setbacks, he did not grow resentful or abandon his intellectual path. Instead, he adjusted to shifting realities without compromising his dedication to truth and personal authenticity. He recognized that while he couldn't always influence the circumstances around him, his responses to them remained entirely his own. His poetry reveals a mind that had mastered the art of finding liberty by embracing the limits of life, paired with an inventive spirit that made the most of whatever possibilities remained. When Khayyam reflected on mortality and the fickleness of fate, he was not giving in to despair or nihilism. Rather, he was engaging in a clear-eyed realism that freed him from squandering energy on resistance to the inevitable. By acknowledging the inescapable conditions of human life, he was able to channel his attention toward areas where meaningful action was still possible. This acceptance did not diminish his sense of agency, it amplified it. His scholarly pursuits in mathematics and science further illustrate this internal freedom. The knowledge and tools available during his time were limited, especially by modern standards, but Khayyam didn't let this hinder him. Rather than waiting for more advanced instruments or breakthroughs, he worked with what was at hand, devising innovative solutions and advancing the frontiers of his era's understanding. One notable example was his geometric method of addressing algebraic problems, a creative response to mathematical limitations that expanded what could be achieved within the framework of his time. Perhaps most strikingly, Khayyam sustained a deep philosophical independence, even within a highly restrictive religious and intellectual climate. Openly challenging dominant theological ideas could have led to persecution, but he devised subtle and sophisticated ways to communicate his doubts and alternative views. Through poetry and reflective prose, he managed to articulate profound and often controversial insights in a manner that thoughtful readers could interpret, while shielding himself from outright censure. This approach demanded not only intellectual skill, but emotional intelligence, the maturity to engage constructively with constraints rather than simply resisting them impulsively. Achieving this level of inner freedom depended on what might be called psychological autonomy, the strength to uphold one's personal beliefs and values despite external pressures to conform. Khayyam developed this through disciplined study, rigorous reasoning, and honest introspection. He learned to separate his true convictions from those imposed upon him by tradition or expectation. This clarity of mind gave him the power to make intentional decisions about when to align with societal norms and when to quietly dissent, rather than reacting reflexively to pressure. Today, maintaining internal freedom in the face of external demands remains a vital challenge. We are surrounded by expectations, whether from employers, family, peers, or society, that can suppress our independent thinking and silence our authentic voices. Many of us feel constrained by financial pressures, social identities, and daily responsibilities that seem to leave little space for self-expression or creative choice. The risk is falling into one of two extremes, either lashing out in self-destructive rebellion or surrendering entirely to external control. Khayyam's life offers a wiser, more skillful alternative. Start by drawing a clear line between the limitations that are truly fixed and those that only appear immovable because alternative approaches haven't yet been considered. Accept the immovable ones with composure and operate resourcefully within their bounds to expand your sense of agency and impact. For the constraints that can be altered, invest in long-term planning to shift conditions in your favor, all while navigating your present reality as skillfully as possible. Most importantly, direct your energy toward the areas where freedom is still possible, no matter the external situation. Your mindset, focus, values, and reactions remain fully within your control. Even when options in the outer world are few, you can nurture your inner world through thoughtful reading, self-reflection, and creative pursuits. Meaningful relationships built on empathy and mutual regard can still flourish. Even in challenging social settings, it's possible to stay true to your voice. Like Khayyam, you can find meaningful ways to share your perspective and offer your distinct contributions to the world, even when limitations feel all-encompassing. Part 9. Embrace all sources, but judge with discernment. Omar Khayyam exemplified a rare blend of intellectual openness and rigorous critical thinking. He studied under mentors from a range of cultural and philosophical backgrounds, absorbing insights from Islamic philosophy, Zoroastrianism, Greek mathematics, and Persian literature. Yet throughout his education, he consistently applied independent judgment, evaluating what he learned with a discerning mind. He did not adopt any tradition in its entirety. Instead, Khayyam selectively engaged with the most compelling ideas from each, always questioning assumptions and weaving together his own integrated worldview. This enabled him to draw strength from diverse intellectual legacies while steering clear of the rigidity that often comes with allegiance to a single school of thought. His method offers a powerful model for our own era, one saturated with information, where distinguishing truth from misinformation is more critical than ever. Khayyam remained alert to insights from unexpected corners. His intellectual journey began under the guidance of Imam Muwaffaq Nishaburi, a revered teacher who educated the children of the elite. He later studied with Bahmanyar, a former Zoroastrian turned Muslim and a disciple of the famous philosopher Avicenna. Exposure to such varied perspectives early on helped him understand that intelligent and sincere thinkers could hold very different views about the most profound questions. Rather than being unsettled by this diversity, Khayyam learned to appreciate its richness. He cultivated the ability to draw wisdom from many sources while applying his own standards of judgment. His training in mathematics, for example, encompassed ideas from Greek, Islamic, and Indian traditions. He read Euclid's Elements, but he didn't merely memorize the theorems. He sought to grasp the principles behind them and push those concepts into new territories. By integrating algebraic insights from earlier Islamic mathematicians with geometric methods from the Greeks, he forged innovative paths in problem-solving. This broad-based education allowed him to perceive connections across mathematical disciplines and devise solutions rooted in multiple traditions. Khayyam's work in philosophy and poetry further revealed his command of a wide array of intellectual currents, including Islamic theology, Sufi mysticism, Greek rationalism, and the artistic norms of Persian literature. Yet his voice remained uniquely his own. He accepted ideas not because they came from revered authorities, but because they aligned with logic and his personal experience. He had a rare gift for identifying shared truths across traditions, while also discerning key differences. From this comparative study, he carved out his own well-reasoned positions. His method of synthesis allowed him to benefit from the accumulated knowledge of many civilizations while maintaining autonomy in thought. Underlying Khayyam's critical engagement with ideas were several enduring principles. First, he separated the strength of an argument from the reputation of its source. Ideas, he believed, must be judged on their intrinsic merit, not on who expressed them. Whether a claim came from a famous scholar, a popular figure, or a political leader, it had to withstand logical scrutiny. Second, he insisted that statements about the natural world be backed by observation and mathematics. Third, he demanded that philosophical and religious doctrines be internally consistent and clear, rather than contradictory or vague. Above all, Khayyam valued ideas that promoted deeper understanding and human flourishing, as opposed to those designed merely to uphold inherited beliefs or social hierarchies. This approach required humility. He recognized that truth could come from those he disagreed with, and that his own beliefs might need to evolve in light of better evidence or reasoning. Khayyam was never afraid to change his mind when confronted with a more persuasive argument or more accurate data. At the same time, he grounded this flexibility in a systematic method of evaluation and a steadfast commitment to following evidence wherever it led. This balance of openness and discernment enabled him to remain a lifelong learner without falling into the trap of endless doubt. In today's world, where information flows from countless outlets, ranging from traditional journalism and academic writing to social media, podcasts, and casual conversation, Khayyam's approach is more vital than ever. We are constantly bombarded by conflicting ideas. The risk is falling into one of two extremes: believing everything we hear or trusting nothing at all. His example reminds us that we can and must do better. We can engage with a wide range of perspectives while still thinking critically, maintaining intellectual independence, and seeking out truth with both courage and humility. Khayyam's example advocates for a more nuanced strategy, one that welcomes fresh perspectives while applying strict standards of evaluation. Begin by clearly defining the criteria you will use to assess ideas and information. Ask yourself whether a claim is backed by trustworthy evidence, whether its argument holds logical consistency, and whether the conclusions are genuinely supported by the premises provided. It is also essential to consider the reliability and possible biases of the sources, but let the primary focus remain on the strength of the reasoning and the credibility of the evidence. Rather than seeking ideas that merely validate your existing beliefs or offer emotional reassurance, pursue those that deepen your understanding of yourself and the world around you. Foster intellectual humility by deliberately engaging with viewpoints that challenge your assumptions, and by recognizing the inherent limits of your own knowledge and experience. As Khayyam demonstrates, it is entirely possible to gain meaningful insights from sources with whom you fundamentally disagree without surrendering your independent thinking. The aim is not to become a passive collector of borrowed opinions, but to cultivate your own informed perspective through thoughtful dialogue with the most compelling ideas drawn from diverse schools of thought. By following this path, you can steer clear of rigid dogmatism and avoid falling into paralyzing doubt, while continuing to grow intellectually throughout your life. Part 10. Embracing life through the lens of mortality. Omar Khayyam's reflections on mortality were never rooted in a grim preoccupation with death. Rather, they served as a profound invitation to recognize and cherish the richness of life. His clear-eyed understanding of life's impermanence did not drive him into despair. Instead, it led him toward a more vibrant engagement with the present and inspired a deeper authenticity in his relationships and creative pursuits. By viewing death as an inevitable aspect of the human condition, rather than something to resist or deny, Khayyam liberated himself to focus on what truly held value. He sought meaning within the fleeting nature of existence, rejecting the hollow comfort of imagined permanence. This conscious acceptance of mortality did not stifle his joy or creative energy. It intensified them. Far from diminishing his passion for life, it amplified his capacity to love, create, and savor each moment. Throughout the Rubaiyat, Khayyam revisited themes of transience and impermanence. But his purpose was not to provoke detachment. It was to encourage a deeper immersion in life. He wrote of the swift passing of youth, the sudden loss of friends, and the unpredictable turns of fortune. These reflections didn't darken his view of the world. On the contrary, they heightened his sensitivity to the beauty of the present, the warmth of companionship, and the miracle of being alive. By confronting death head-on, Khayyam avoided the unconscious fears that often arise from repressing our awareness of mortality. He refused to live as if time were limitless. And in doing so, he sidestepped the misguided priorities that such an illusion fosters. His clear acceptance of life's limits empowered him to make deliberate, meaningful choices about how to spend his days. Khayyam's scientific work echoed this integration of mortality awareness with an affirmation of life. As an astronomer exploring the vast timelines of the cosmos, he was acutely aware of how brief a human life is when compared to the age of stars and galaxies. Yet rather than feeling dwarfed or insignificant, he found awe and gratitude in the sheer fact of consciousness. For him, to be a temporary creature capable of grasping eternal truths was not a source of despair. It was a reason to rejoice. His contributions to mathematics were, in his eyes, a form of participation in something timeless, despite his own finite lifespan. This approach required emotional bravery. To truly acknowledge death is to let go of comforting illusions about control and permanence. Khayyam chose to face that fear directly. He did not retreat into denial or false hopes of immortality. Instead, he discovered that accepting death, though daunting at first, led to a deeper peace and a more genuine sense of freedom than the relentless struggle to preserve an illusion of safety ever could. By surrendering to what could not be altered, Khayyam redirected his efforts toward making his limited life as meaningful, joyful, and rich as possible. Importantly, he did not equate acceptance of mortality with passivity or despair. Quite the opposite. An awareness of life's brevity became, for him, a source of motivation. It urged him to live purposefully and to create work that might endure beyond his own lifetime. His enduring mathematical innovations, his work on calendar reform, and his evocative poetry were all expressions of this desire to leave something valuable behind. The awareness of time's limits sharpened his focus, allowing him to distinguish what truly mattered from what did not. In his personal relationships, this same awareness brought a deeper sense of gratitude and attentiveness. Knowing that neither he nor his friends would be here forever gave their time together greater significance. Rather than making their connections feel futile, it made them more precious. His verses about friendship carry an urgency and tenderness born of his recognition of life's fragility. This understanding prevented him from taking those close to him for granted, and it inspired him to express his love and appreciation while he still could. For modern readers, Khayyam's perspective on mortality offers a powerful counterpoint to the dominant attitudes of today. In a culture that often avoids the subject of death and idolizes youth, we tend to behave as though aging and dying are problems that happen to other people. This widespread denial can lead to poor choices, disillusionment, and crises later in life when the reality of mortality can no longer be ignored. Khayyam's teachings suggest a different path, that embracing the truth of our mortality early and honestly leads to wiser decisions and a deeper satisfaction with life. His work invites us not to fear death, but to use our awareness of it to live more fully, more meaningfully, and more authentically. Recognizing the finite nature of your time is essential to shaping a life of intention. This awareness encourages you to focus on what truly matters and to make deliberate, thoughtful decisions. Rather than deferring important conversations, meaningful experiences, or creative ambitions to some hypothetical future, when you imagine you'll be more ready or less busy, it's vital to understand that the only moment guaranteed to you is the present. Instead of waiting for a more convenient time, let the reality of life's brevity inspire you to express love more openly, to engage in work that brings a sense of purpose, and to savor the small, everyday joys that surround you now. While you may not have control over the length of your life, you have significant influence over how you spend the time that remains. Khayyam reminds us that an awareness of death should deepen, not diminish, our appreciation for beauty, wonder, and delight. The fleeting nature of spring blossoms only enhances their charm, not detracts from it. Likewise, the fact that human consciousness is such a brief occurrence in the vast timeline of the universe only makes our very existence all the more extraordinary. When we embrace impermanence instead of resisting it, we unlock a deeper sense of meaning in life's temporary moments. Through this acceptance, we can create work and live in ways that resonate beyond ourselves, contributing to something greater and more enduring than our individual lives. Part 11. Cultivating intellectual courage in the face of opposition. Omar Khayyam stands as a compelling example of intellectual bravery, consistently seeking truth and expressing his genuine beliefs, even when doing so invited criticism, provoked controversy, or put him at personal risk. Rather than blindly accepting convention, he dared to question entrenched ideas and authoritative figures, following his reasoning wherever it led. His life reminds us that intellectual integrity is not merely an academic virtue, but a critical component of living with honesty and clarity of thought. Khayyam's courage wasn't born out of reckless defiance, but from a deep and thoughtful commitment to truth. He was willing to endure social backlash because he recognized that compromising intellectual honesty would ultimately mean forfeiting the possibility of genuine insight and authentic existence. His legacy affirms that intellectual courage is not a luxury reserved for scholars, but a necessity for anyone who aspires to think freely and live meaningfully. One of the earliest signs of Khayyam's intellectual fortitude emerged through his scientific and mathematical explorations, particularly when he tackled questions that defied prevailing theories. His groundbreaking geometric method for solving cubic equations introduced entirely new approaches, boldly departing from established mathematical conventions. This boldness required not only confidence in his own intellectual abilities, but also the resolve to stand by conclusions that others might dismiss or mock. Rather than choosing the safer path of incremental research that aligned with accepted norms, Khayyam opted for bold innovations, even at the risk of damaging his reputation. His astronomical investigations similarly exemplified this bravery. When his calculations exposed errors in widely used calendars, he did not adjust his data to appease the status quo. Instead, he reported his findings truthfully, regardless of the potential consequences. His call for calendar reform was more than a technical correction. It was a challenge to deeply ingrained religious and political systems, given how closely calendars were tied to sacred observances and social order. Nevertheless, Khayyam prioritized factual accuracy over social approval and chose truth over convenience, even when doing so created tension with influential institutions. Perhaps the most striking manifestation of Khayyam's intellectual courage was in his philosophical and poetic critiques of religious orthodoxy. In his Rubaiyat, he openly expressed doubt regarding foundational beliefs such as divine judgment, predestination, and the afterlife, core tenets of his society's religious worldview. These were not fleeting, private musings, but public declarations made in a context where dissent could lead to serious personal danger. Indeed, there is evidence that he was at one point accused of impiety and compelled to make a pilgrimage to Mecca to affirm his religious commitment. Yet even under such pressure, Khayyam refused to suppress his true beliefs or adopt the safety of conformity. Instead, he remained true to his convictions, not to provoke, but because he believed in the value of honest inquiry. His courage was anchored in principles that allowed it to endure without becoming self-destructive. Firstly, his controversial stances were based on careful reasoning and evidence, not on emotional rebellion or a desire to shock. Khayyam's religious skepticism was rooted in deep philosophical thought, not shallow contrarianism. Secondly, he exercised discernment in expressing dissent, choosing moments and settings where his ideas might genuinely foster understanding rather than provoke unnecessary conflict. Thirdly, even when challenging deeply held beliefs, he treated others with respect, engaging ideas critically without resorting to personal attacks. This form of courage also demanded emotional strength, as independent thinking often leads to alienation and harsh judgment. Khayyam endured periods of political marginalization and social rejection, yet he never abandoned his dedication to intellectual honesty. He understood that the price of avoiding confrontation was the sacrifice of his own integrity and the value of his work. His resilience drew from both his confidence in his intellectual capacity and his adherence to values that surpassed the need for public validation. For contemporary thinkers, Khayyam's example is more relevant than ever. In today's world, where information is abundant and ideological divisions run deep, there is constant pressure to conform. Social media algorithms reward popularity and penalize dissent, making it more tempting to echo prevailing opinions than to think independently. Meanwhile, academic, professional, and social arenas often stifle genuine risk-taking, in favor of cautious conformity and conventional thinking. In this environment, Khayyam's legacy reminds us that intellectual courage is not just a timeless ideal, it is a present-day necessity. The challenges we face, both personally and collectively, demand precisely the kind of original thought and inventive problem-solving that Khayyam embodied. Building intellectual courage starts with trusting your own ability to think critically and reason clearly. It involves learning how to assess information objectively, form coherent arguments, and recognize weak or faulty logic, regardless of the source. It also calls for the ability to separate your true beliefs and emotions from those shaped by societal pressure or the desire to fit in. Developing resilience in the face of disagreement is essential so you can withstand criticism without immediately surrendering your viewpoint just to be accepted. Having intellectual courage means knowing when to speak up and how to do so in a way that is constructive rather than combative. Take a cue from Khayyam by engaging with questions where independent thought leads to deeper insight, rather than stirring up conflict for its own sake. Support your controversial stances with thoughtful reasoning and solid evidence, not with impulsive reactions or the need to stand out. Even when you disagree, treat others with respect and aim to foster meaningful conversations instead of trying to dominate or win debates. Above all, remember that thinking for yourself and expressing your genuine perspective contributes not only to your personal growth, but also to the greater pursuit of knowledge. When you engage honestly and with integrity, you help move humanity closer to solving complex problems and uncovering truth. In doing so, like Khayyam, you play a part in shaping a culture that values inquiry over conformity and seeks truth over popularity. Your dedication to intellectual freedom and sincere dialogue could be one of the most lasting and meaningful legacies you offer to your community and to those who come after you. Part 12. Cultivate intellectual humility without undermining confidence. Omar Khayyam exemplified a rare harmony between intellectual modesty and self-assured reasoning, a combination that enabled him to remain a lifelong learner while also making significant contributions to the advancement of knowledge. He was acutely aware of the limitations of human cognition and openly acknowledged when he lacked answers. At the same time, he trusted in the power of disciplined reasoning and his ability to reach meaningful insights. This equilibrium shielded him from the arrogance that halts growth and from the paralyzing doubt that impedes decisive thought. By staying receptive to new ideas while remaining anchored in reasoned conclusions, Khayyam modeled a way of thinking that balances self-belief with honest inquiry, an essential trait for both sound judgment and genuine intellectual integrity. His humility was most visible in his candid acceptance of life's deepest mysteries, those no one can resolve with certainty. In his verse, Khayyam openly confessed his uncertainty about profound issues such as the afterlife, the ultimate aim of human existence, and the nature of free will versus destiny. Instead of feigning certainty or uncritically embracing popular beliefs that failed to satisfy his rational standards, he acknowledged the ambiguity of these questions while continuing to explore them with thoughtful curiosity. This intellectual honesty freed him from the need to defend positions he found unconvincing, enabling him to focus on problems where real progress was attainable. In his scientific endeavors, Khayyam demonstrated similar humility by recognizing that even his most careful measurements and observations were provisional, subject to refinement as tools and methods improved. He understood that science advances through iterative progress, and that all knowledge, however precise, is open to revision. Yet his awareness of these limitations never diminished his confidence in discoveries grounded in rigorous method and observation. He made a clear distinction between warranted confidence, based on well-supported conclusions, and unjustified certainty in areas still marked by ambiguity. His work in mathematics offers another clear example of this dynamic balance. Khayyam built systematically on the work of earlier mathematicians, crediting their insights while identifying where their theories could be extended or refined. When he devised new techniques for solving cubic equations, he did not claim final or absolute truth. Rather, he proposed these methods as improvements upon existing ones, solutions that advanced understanding but remained open to future revision. He was confident enough in the soundness of his mathematical innovations to publish and build upon them, yet humble enough to accept that others might one day improve on his work. Achieving such a balance required a high degree of self-knowledge and emotional maturity. Khayyam had to learn how to differentiate between rightful pride in genuine accomplishment and the kind of ego that blinds one to further learning. He needed to trust his intellectual abilities without becoming dogmatic or dismissive. He remained inquisitive and open to new ideas, without falling into a skepticism so extreme that it paralyzed action based on current knowledge. His approach to learning from others further illustrates this balance. He sought guidance from respected teachers and engaged deeply with established intellectual traditions, showing sincere respect for inherited wisdom. Yet he always preserved his capacity for independent thought. He neither accepted ideas solely on the basis of tradition nor rejected them because of their origin. Instead, he evaluated every argument on its own merit, maintaining an openness to insight from unexpected quarters while shaping his own views through careful analysis. In today's world, maintaining this balance between humility and confidence may be more difficult than ever. We live in an age that often amplifies extremes, encouraging either an overconfidence ungrounded in evidence or a pervasive doubt that stifles decision-making. Social media and cultural trends frequently reward those who present bold opinions with unwavering certainty, even when the facts are unclear or incomplete. At the same time, the overwhelming complexity of modern knowledge and the speed at which it evolves can foster a skepticism that leads to intellectual paralysis. Khayyam's life and work offer a more measured alternative, one that navigates between extremes. He invites us to develop a sense of discernment, recognizing that not all questions demand the same degree of certainty. By learning to calibrate our confidence according to the nature of the question at hand, we can engage with the world more wisely and effectively. Some ideas are backed by overwhelming evidence and warrant strong confidence. Others rest on solid but revisable foundations, while some remain open questions or rely on personal interpretation. It's important to match your level of certainty to the quality of evidence, rather than treating all claims with the same level of conviction or doubt. If you're unsure, be honest. It's entirely valid to say, "I don't know." At the same time, don't let uncertainty paralyze you. When decisions must be made, rely on the best understanding you currently have. Practice what might be called confident humility, the capacity to support your well-considered conclusions while remaining receptive to new evidence that might prompt a change in perspective. This means placing trust not just in what you currently believe, but in the reasoning process that led you there. If you've approached a problem with careful thought, solid evidence, and logical methods, you're justified in having confidence in your conclusions, so long as that confidence remains flexible. When stronger arguments or clearer data emerge, be prepared to update your views. This mindset enables continuous learning while still allowing you to contribute meaningfully to discussions and decisions based on your present best judgment. Keep in mind that confidence and intellectual humility aren't innate traits. They are skills honed through deliberate practice and reflection. As the poet Khayyam exemplified, it's possible to recognize the boundaries of what you know while still trusting in your ability to think critically and offer meaningful insights. Striking this balance makes you not only a more capable learner, but also a more credible source of knowledge and a more genuine person, someone who engages honestly with both the potential and the limits of human understanding. The aim isn't to reach flawless knowledge, but to think as clearly and rigorously as you can with the information you have, and to stay open to growth and discovery as a lifelong pursuit. Part 13. Discovering Meaning in Fleeting Beauty. Omar Khayyam possessed a rare gift. He could uncover deep significance and joy in experiences he knew were fleeting. For him, the ephemeral nature of beauty was not a source of sorrow, but part of what made it extraordinary, something to be honored and embraced. His verses often return to vivid images of blooming and fading flowers, the rhythm of changing seasons, and brief yet intensely meaningful human experiences. Rather than seeing impermanence as a flaw, Khayyam treated it as a feature that enhanced value. Because such moments could never be possessed or repeated, they became all the more worth savoring. His perspective provides enduring insight into how we might find fulfillment in a world where all that we cherish is inevitably touched by change. In the Rubaiyat, Khayyam repeatedly turned to the metaphor of spring flowers to illustrate the beauty that resides in the fleeting. To him, a rose did not lose its charm because it withered, nor did a perfect day become less valuable because it had to end. The very fact that these experiences were transient made them more significant, reminding us they are not entitlements but gifts. Rather than clinging to what must pass, Khayyam allowed himself to revel in such moments without the burden of needing them to last forever. He refused to let impermanence become a source of despair or disillusionment. This outlook extended to his view of human relationships and social bonds. Khayyam wrote tenderly of friendship, fully aware that all connections would one day be broken, if not by circumstance, then by death. But he did not shy away from intimacy to shield himself from eventual sorrow. Instead, he committed himself wholeheartedly to the relationships available to him. The urgency and gentleness in his poetry reflect his deep recognition of the fragility and preciousness of human connection. His understanding of impermanence also shaped his dedication to his intellectual and creative pursuits. As both a mathematician and an astronomer, Khayyam knew that his findings would someday be refined or replaced by new discoveries. As a poet, he recognized that his words might be forgotten, misread, or ignored by later generations. Yet this awareness did not dissuade him from striving for excellence. On the contrary, it drove him to create work that was beautiful and true, while the opportunity was still his. The impermanence of his contributions made them more meaningful, not less, because they embodied his honest engagement with the questions of his age. His scientific understanding of time, measured not in years but in cosmic scales, only deepened his reverence for life's passing moments. Astronomy taught him how brief human life is when set against the lifespan of stars and galaxies. But rather than feeling insignificant in the face of such vastness, Khayyam found awe in the fact that, however briefly, conscious beings like us can recognize and generate beauty. The temporary nature of our awareness made it even more miraculous that meaning and beauty could arise at all. To find richness in the fleeting required emotional depth and spiritual insight. Khayyam had the courage to accept loss as an inseparable part of love and joy. He learned to welcome happiness without demanding that it endure indefinitely. He could love without needing to own, and delight in the present without trying to hold it still. This acceptance freed him from the exhausting urge to preserve the impermanent and opened the door to fully inhabiting each beautiful moment as it came. He realized that the desire to stretch temporary joys into something lasting can actually diminish their value. For us today, Khayyam's wisdom offers a counterpoint to two prevalent tendencies: the restless chase for lasting gratification that dominates much of modern consumer life, and the skeptical rejection of temporary pleasures masquerading as sophistication. We often tire ourselves in pursuit of permanence, snapping photos to capture every instant, collecting objects in search of lasting happiness, or attempting to freeze our relationships in their current form. We often shield ourselves from the pain of impermanence by downplaying fleeting joys or steering clear of experiences we know are short-lived. Yet, as Khayyam wisely points out, this mindset overlooks the profound richness that temporary beauty can offer. Instead of resisting transience, we can choose to immerse ourselves fully in each moment, embracing it without clinging to the hope that it will endure. When you witness the splendor of nature, experience a powerful work of art, or share a moment of genuine connection with another person, let yourself be deeply touched. Resist the urge to capture, repeat, or prolong it. Recognize that the ephemerality of such moments is not a shortcoming to be fixed. It is precisely what gives them their depth and resonance. A sunset is no less magnificent because it fades quickly, just as a heartfelt exchange isn't diminished by its brevity. It's also important to acknowledge that your own acts of creativity, no matter how impactful, are temporary, destined to be succeeded by the contributions of others. This truth need not be disheartening. On the contrary, it can inspire you to give your very best while you can, and to add your voice sincerely to the timeless human dialogue about truth, beauty, and meaning. Like Khayyam, you can take joy in crafting something honest and beautiful, not for fame or permanence, but simply because it is worth doing. Ultimately, the value of your work lies in the presence and intention you bring to it, not in how long it lasts or how widely it is remembered. The true reward is found in the care, clarity, and purpose with which you create, right here in the fleeting now. Part 14. Embracing Global Wisdom. Lessons from Omar Khayyam. Omar Khayyam lived during a time and place where the great intellectual currents of Persian, Arab, Greek, and Indian civilizations converged. Positioned at this unique cultural nexus, he masterfully wove together ideas from each of these traditions, crafting a worldview that was both integrative and uniquely his own. Instead of restricting himself to the confines of a single heritage, Khayyam drew inspiration from Indian mathematical developments, absorbed the philosophical depth of ancient Greece, applied the empirical rigor of Islamic science, and embraced the poetic elegance of Persian literature. This ability to synthesize knowledge from diverse cultures empowered Khayyam to make pioneering contributions that would have been impossible within a single framework. His life offers a timeless model for our increasingly interconnected world, one in which we are surrounded by a vast mosaic of global knowledge, and where the challenge is not simply access, but learning how to integrate this abundance meaningfully and coherently. Khayyam's work in mathematics stands as a striking illustration of his cross-cultural synthesis. His approach to solving algebraic equations through geometry merged Greek spatial reasoning with Islamic algebraic logic in innovative and previously unexplored ways. While he carefully studied figures like Euclid and other Greek mathematicians, he did not confine himself to their methods. Instead, he applied geometric thought to problems traditionally tackled only with symbols, breaking new ground in the process. Similarly, he built on the work of Islamic scholars such as al-Khwarizmi, but extended their algebraic insights by adding a geometric dimension that opened new avenues of understanding. His astronomical achievements also reflected this intercultural learning. By combining theoretical constructs from the Greeks, precise observational practices from the Islamic world, and computational strategies from Indian astronomy, Khayyam achieved extraordinary accuracy in calculating the solar year. His work on the Jalali calendar, one of the most precise calendars of its time, was a direct outcome of this synthesis of knowledge drawn from multiple civilizations. Such an accomplishment would have been unthinkable had he limited himself to the boundaries of a single intellectual lineage. Khayyam deeply understood that no culture held a monopoly on truth or wisdom. By integrating perspectives that had long existed in isolation from one another, he arrived at insights that none of the traditions could have produced independently. This principle was not limited to his scientific endeavors, but was equally present in his philosophical and literary output. His poetry, grounded in Persian literary tradition, was enriched by his engagement with Greek philosophical thought, Islamic theology, and possibly even the Zoroastrian ideas passed on by his teacher, Bakhmanian. The elegance of his verse was matched by the intellectual rigor behind it. His poetry became a vehicle for conveying complex ideas with emotional nuance and philosophical depth. Rather than simply adopting any one worldview wholesale, Khayyam distilled the core insights from each and forged them into a personal, coherent philosophy rooted in experience and reason. Such intellectual integration demanded exceptional discernment. Khayyam had to recognize when different cultural traditions were expressing similar ideas in different forms. For instance, he understood that geometry and algebra were not competing disciplines, but complementary ways of revealing the same mathematical truths. Likewise, he saw that Greek rationalism and Islamic theology, though divergent in origin, shared a commitment to understanding the nature of reality and human existence. His poetic insight also allowed him to see how different cultures use language, imagery, and metaphor to explore universal aspects of the human condition. This process also called for a deep emotional and spiritual openness. To embrace ideas from beyond his own cultural background, Khayyam had to confront the possibility that Persian traditions were not the sole source of truth. Such an acknowledgement could have been unsettling, even destabilizing, but he approached it not with defensiveness, but with curiosity and courage. By learning from other civilizations, he did not dilute his identity. On the contrary, he became more authentically Persian. The knowledge he absorbed from beyond his native culture gave him the tools to contribute something truly original to it. For contemporary readers, Khayyam's example is more relevant than ever. In our digital age, cultural boundaries are more porous than at any time in history, and the wisdom of the world is only a click away. But access alone is not enough. Like Khayyam, we must learn to recognize, integrate, and synthesize across traditions, cultivating a broad vision without losing our roots. His legacy teaches us that the deepest understanding comes not from isolation, but from connection, and that the fusion of diverse perspectives can illuminate truths no single path can reveal alone. We have the remarkable opportunity to explore Asia's philosophical legacies, India's mathematical innovations, Europe's scientific paradigms, and the artistic expressions of Africa and the Americas. However, we often miss this chance, either because we're daunted by the sheer variety of global knowledge, or because we retreat into the comfort of our own cultural frameworks, avoiding the unfamiliar. Khayyam's perspective offers a way forward, a path to embracing cultural diversity without compromising our own identity or sense of direction. The journey begins with approaching other cultures not with blind acceptance or defensive skepticism, but with sincere curiosity. Each tradition holds unique approaches to enduring human questions about the nature of knowledge, meaning, creativity, and human connection. Seek out not only their answers, but also the ways they arrive at them. Strive to understand these traditions deeply enough to grasp their internal coherence and distinctive insights, rather than simply borrowing individual ideas out of context. At the same time, nurture your own ability to think critically and synthesize creatively, rather than becoming a passive collector of borrowed concepts. Real intercultural learning demands not just intellectual rigor, but emotional resilience. It involves the courage to have your beliefs questioned and your worldview stretched, experiences that can be unsettling at first. It also calls for the humility to recognize that no single culture, however rich, holds all the answers to the complexities of human existence. Following Khayyam's example, you can use your encounters with different cultural perspectives to deepen your own authenticity, uncovering ideas and opportunities that might have remained invisible within a single tradition. The aim is not to abandon your cultural roots, but to become a living link between them, someone who contributes meaningfully to the global dialogue on truth, wisdom, and beauty. Part 15, Sustaining Productivity in the Face of Adversity. Throughout his life, Omar Khayyam consistently displayed an extraordinary capacity to remain intellectually and creatively productive, even amid political unrest, social marginalization, and personal adversity, any of which could have easily derailed his work. His ability to stay focused on complex, long-term pursuits and to create enduring contributions, even when surrounded by instability, offers timeless guidance for those striving to continue meaningful efforts despite hardship. Khayyam's sustained output was not merely the result of strong will or self-discipline. Rather, it reflected a profound understanding of how to organize his work and manage his attention in ways that remained resilient under pressure. His life demonstrates that significant creativity and discovery are achievable under almost any circumstances, if one cultivates the right mindset and remains devoted to what truly matters. He lived in an era marked by intense political volatility, where the withdrawal of patronage could be sudden and aligning with intellectual movements could carry serious risks. Following the death of Sultan Malik Shah, his benefactor, in 1092, Khayyam entered a period of diminished favor and uncertainty regarding future support. Instead of succumbing to fear or abandoning his pursuits, he adjusted his approach to maintain productivity amid new and less favorable conditions. Khayyam accepted that the external environment was largely beyond his influence. What he could control, however, was his personal response. He chose to continue his research and writing, recognizing that persistence in the face of unpredictability was crucial. Despite needing sustained focus for his mathematical and astronomical work, he completed major scholarly projects even while navigating periods of instability and relocation. He finished his influential algebra treatise while traveling and re-establishing himself in unfamiliar cities. His meticulous work on calendar reform demanded years of observation, which he sustained despite changes in his official roles. Such achievements point to well-established working habits and mental practices that allowed him to function productively in suboptimal environments. Rather than waiting for ideal circumstances, which might never come, Khayyam made consistent progress with whatever time and resources he had. His ability to work effectively in difficult contexts was grounded in several key strategies that remain applicable today. First, he pursued work that held deep personal meaning, rather than relying solely on external validation or rewards. This intrinsic motivation provided a stable foundation for long-term commitment, independent of public recognition or continued support. Second, Khayyam mastered the art of incremental progress. He moved forward on complex intellectual challenges through steady, consistent effort, working in smaller segments when extended periods were unavailable. This approach enabled meaningful advancement without relying on rare moments of breakthrough. Moreover, he learned to separate his inner emotional landscape from the work at hand. Although he undoubtedly experienced stress, doubt, and anxiety amid political upheaval and social criticism, he did not allow these emotions to derail his thinking or creativity. His poetry reveals a deeply emotional and reflective individual. Yet rather than letting those feelings paralyze him, he used them as fuel for artistic expression and philosophical insight. Khayyam recognized emotional turbulence as a natural part of human experience, something to be acknowledged and navigated, not suppressed or feared. By developing ways to manage these inner states skillfully, he preserved his capacity for intellectual achievement in the midst of turmoil. In fact, his productivity was often enhanced by the very challenges he faced. The political instability and societal pressures of his time became sources of reflection, prompting him to explore themes like fate, destiny, and human agency. His direct engagement with a world in flux deepened his philosophical inquiries and enriched his understanding of human behavior and power dynamics. Crucially, Khayyam's productivity also benefited from the interplay of his diverse interests. When he encountered obstacles in one area, he could pivot to another, shifting from mathematics to astronomy or from science to poetry or philosophy. This intellectual flexibility kept him from becoming completely blocked. There was always a path forward in some domain of meaningful work, even if others were temporarily inaccessible. By embracing a multidimensional approach to learning and creation, Omar Khayyam ensured that his momentum was rarely halted. His example teaches us that resilience, internal purpose, and adaptable work strategies can sustain productivity and creativity, even in the most challenging of circumstances. Khayyam's life offers essential lessons on how to remain productive amid the chaos of modern life, where we are constantly bombarded by information and demands that fragment our attention. Just as he did, we frequently encounter conditions that seem hostile to deep, focused work, be it from personal responsibilities, financial strain, health issues, or turbulent societal and political landscapes. In such situations, the common response is either to postpone meaningful endeavors until circumstances improve, or to abandon our larger ambitions altogether, assuming that the current environment is too overwhelming to support them. Yet Khayyam's method shows us that neither resignation nor delay is necessary. What matters instead is developing practical strategies for maintaining progress, regardless of external difficulties. The first step is to focus on work that you find inherently valuable, work that resonates deeply with your own values and interests, rather than relying solely on outside approval or ideal conditions. When your work holds personal significance, you are more likely to persist, even in the face of adversity. It's also crucial to master the art of working in short, focused sessions when extended periods of time aren't available. Progress stems from steady effort and accumulated consistency, not just from moments of dramatic inspiration. Maintain a range of projects so that you have the flexibility to pivot between them. If one path becomes blocked or circumstances make a particular task unfeasible, another project can still move forward. Equally important is the ability to distinguish between your emotional state and your capacity for action. While stress, confusion, and hardship are real and valid, they need not completely derail your focus or decision-making. Instead of treating these emotions as barriers, acknowledge them. Then reframe them as sources of creative insight and intellectual depth, as Khayyam did. Ultimately, meaningful work can be pursued in any context. What makes the difference is your approach and your commitment to what truly matters to you. Part 16. cultivating mental flexibility without sacrificing core principles. Omar Khayyam exemplified remarkable mental agility throughout his life, consistently adjusting his methods and perspectives in response to new insights. Yet even as he evolved in his thinking, he remained deeply anchored in essential values, namely a commitment to intellectual integrity, the pursuit of truth, and genuine self-expression. This rare combination of openness and steadfastness allowed him to mature intellectually without losing his philosophical center. Khayyam's life illustrates how one can embrace change and innovation without becoming erratic or compromising foundational beliefs. His ability to remain receptive to new possibilities while holding firmly to guiding principles offers a model for navigating complexity in a world where both rigid dogma and opportunistic adaptability often lead to failure. His adaptability was particularly evident in his scholarly work. Khayyam did not cling to initial theories or techniques out of pride or habit. Rather, he revised them when stronger arguments or clearer evidence emerged. In mathematics, for instance, he continually refined his solutions, enhancing them through careful analysis and empirical observation instead of remaining attached to earlier formulations. As he progressed in solving algebraic equations geometrically, Khayyam's methods evolved through multiple stages, each iteration more refined than the last. This dynamic evolution was not aimless. It was underpinned by a firm dedication to logical consistency and mathematical rigor, which served as the enduring foundation for his methodological innovations. His astronomical pursuits reflected the same dual commitment. Faced with discrepancies in established calendars and astronomical data, Khayyam did not hesitate to discard conventional systems in favor of more accurate and reliable methods. His involvement in the creation of the Jalali calendar marked a significant break from existing models. Yet the new system was grounded in the same unwavering pursuit of precision and empirical accuracy that characterized all his scientific endeavors. He changed his practices, but never his allegiance to truth, clarity, and precision. This blend of openness and fidelity to principle was also evident in his philosophical inquiries and poetic writings. In these domains, Khayyam demonstrated a deep willingness to explore varied viewpoints and to express changing understandings of life's fundamental mysteries. His poetry reveals a thinker continually engaged in reflection and unafraid to revise his beliefs in light of new experiences. Though his thoughts evolved, certain moral and intellectual convictions remained intact. His insistence on honesty, his resistance to dogmatic thinking, and his appreciation for beauty, human connection, and existential contemplation. These enduring principles provided continuity and coherence as his individual interpretations matured and changed. Khayyam's flexibility extended beyond intellectual work to his navigation of changing external realities. When political shifts endangered his sources of patronage, he adjusted by seeking new forms of support and by adapting his professional strategies to suit different environments. In situations requiring him to publicly affirm religious conformity, he complied, for instance by undertaking the pilgrimage to Mecca, but continued to express his personal philosophical convictions privately and authentically. He mastered the delicate art of adapting to social and political pressures without betraying his core ideals. This required a high level of emotional intelligence and a clear understanding of himself. Khayyam had to carefully discern which parts of his worldview were foundational and which were subject to revision, depending on new knowledge or changing contexts. This clarity allowed him to remain confident in his essential principles while remaining intellectually humble. He could shift his stance on specific issues without feeling that his identity was threatened or his direction lost. Such self-knowledge gave him the resilience to grow intellectually without sacrificing the integrity of his beliefs. Khayyam's adaptability was rooted in a profound awareness that ultimate truth transcends any single viewpoint. He recognized that true wisdom demands not only strong initial hypotheses, but also the humility to let go of them when faced with contrary evidence. His openness to correction and willingness to revise his ideas reveal a man devoted not to being right, but to discovering what is real. This commitment to a scientific mindset extended well beyond his technical pursuits. It shaped the way he engaged with philosophical issues and personal challenges alike. It made him not only a more capable learner, but also someone others could depend on for thoughtful, grounded insights. He recognized that true intellectual flexibility, when anchored in unwavering principles, supports the pursuit of truth rather than detracting from it. In today's world, cultivating this harmony between adaptability and consistency may be more difficult and more essential than ever before. We find ourselves living through a time of relentless transformation, where staying true to enduring principles can often feel either unattainable or hopelessly idealistic. With constant exposure to new data, shifting narratives, and diverse perspectives, our beliefs and assumptions are continuously put to the test. The risk is falling into one of two traps: clinging rigidly to familiar views out of fear of change, or surrendering to such boundless openness that we lose a clear sense of who we are and what we value. What Khayyam demonstrates is that these extremes are not our only options. His example teaches us that it's possible to remain rooted in core values while allowing space for evolving thoughts and strategies. The first step is to clearly define the essential principles that form your identity and moral compass, such as integrity, compassion, justice, a sense of beauty, or a commitment to truth. These foundational ideals should be carefully distinguished from the more malleable aspects of your thinking, like your political stances, your views on personal relationships, or your approach to professional advancement. While those specific beliefs and methods should remain open to reconsideration in light of new experiences and information, your core commitments should remain steady. In doing so, you allow yourself to grow and respond thoughtfully to change without losing the deeper sense of purpose that gives your life coherence and direction. At the same time, work to develop a quality that might best be described as principled open-mindedness, a mindset that welcomes new perspectives and evidence, but evaluates them through the lens of your most important values. Like Khayyam, you can and should revise your thinking when confronted with better arguments or clearer facts. Yet you do so not out of indecision, but from a place of fidelity to what truly matters. Striking this balance will not only enhance your ability to learn and adapt, but it will also make you a person whose reliability and insight others can trust. Flexibility, when disciplined by principle, becomes a form of wisdom, not weakness. The objective isn't to be perfectly consistent or endlessly flexible, but to embody a principled adaptability that fosters continuous growth without sacrificing integrity or direction. Part 17. Creating Beauty as a Response to Life's Hardships. Omar Khayyam consistently met the hardships, ambiguities, and griefs of life, not with despair or detachment, but by crafting works of enduring beauty. Rather than allowing bitterness, cynicism, or emotional withdrawal to take hold, he turned directly toward life's difficulties: mortality, political unrest, and philosophical uncertainty, and shaped them into sources of creative inspiration. Instead of allowing these challenges to paralyze his artistic spirit, Khayyam transformed them into fuel for profound expression. His life exemplifies how the act of creating beauty can serve not as an escape from suffering, but as a bold and meaningful way to engage with it, one that elevates personal pain into something resonant and valuable for others. This view of art as a resilient, resistant force offers a vital perspective on how to maintain a sense of direction and hope during troubled times. Khayyam's most renowned verses confront themes like impermanence, ambiguity, and sorrow. Yet rather than being remembered for gloom, they are admired for their elegance and grace. In contemplating the fleeting nature of life and the certainty of death, he didn't fall into despair. Instead, he crafted vivid imagery and metaphors that reimagined these realities as gateways to insight and poetic splendor. His reflections on impermanence became affirmations of living in the present. His embrace of uncertainty evolved into a call to cherish the beauty and meaning that could be found in the here and now. Far from succumbing to despair, he harnessed life's instability as creative momentum, producing art that continues to touch readers across generations. This was not shallow optimism or denial of pain, but a sincere and courageous artistic engagement with life's hardest truths. Khayyam never claimed that existence was simple or that every problem had a solution. Yet he did not allow hardship to dictate his outlook. Through his poetry, he showed that human creativity possesses the power to convert even the darkest moments into something meaningful. His work reveals how the mind can act as a kind of spiritual alchemist, turning life's heavy burdens into golden insights and emotional clarity. This same inventive spirit extended into his achievements in mathematics and science. When conventional methods failed to solve cubic equations, Khayyam didn't stop there. He developed innovative geometric techniques that pushed the boundaries of mathematical thought. Similarly, when existing calendar systems proved imprecise, he helped design a more accurate and harmonious model for tracking time, one that reflected a deeper grasp of celestial rhythms. The drive behind both his poetic and technical pursuits was the same: to bring clarity, order, and beauty to realms of confusion or mystery. This was no passive process. It demanded emotional bravery, the willingness to face life's uncertainties without flinching. Khayyam didn't look away from death, loss, or doubt. He absorbed these truths fully so he could reimagine them through his art. That willingness to be emotionally vulnerable gave his work an authenticity and depth that could not have been achieved through denial or pretense. He understood that making beauty in the face of pain is not a luxury or indulgence, but a vital act of shared humanity. His poetry offered comfort and inspiration to readers struggling with their own fears of death, uncertainty, and sorrow. Likewise, his contributions to science and mathematics deepened our collective understanding of the elegant structures that shape the universe. In transforming his personal challenges into creative output, Khayyam created a legacy that not only reflected his resilience, but also empowered others to respond to their own struggles with insight and strength. Even in the most uncertain and turbulent moments of his life, the creative process itself became a refuge and a source of meaning for him. His purpose was not bound to external success or recognition. It came from within, from his ability to respond with imagination and artistry to whatever life laid before him. Through this inner resourcefulness, Omar Khayyam left behind a body of work that continues to illuminate the human experience with beauty, truth, and enduring hope. An inner wellspring of meaning gave Khayyam the strength to withstand the unpredictable shifts of external fate. His life stands as a timeless reminder of how to nurture creativity and hope, even in an age burdened by crises and complexity. In today's world, we are constantly bombarded by troubling headlines, stories of suffering, injustice, environmental degradation, and social strife that can easily overwhelm us and lead to despair or disengagement. In response, many of us fall into one of two traps. Either we become immobilized by the sheer scale of the problems we face, or we retreat into a cycle of distraction, using entertainment and consumer comforts to dull our awareness of painful realities. But Khayyam offers a third path, a way of engaging with hardship through creativity, turning adversity into a catalyst for meaning and beauty. This isn't about denying the existence of real problems, nor is it the belief that creativity alone can resolve every crisis. Instead, it's a call to use your imaginative and creative powers as a response to difficulty, to meet life's challenges with contributions that carry value and purpose. Whether through art, inventive problem-solving, compassionate relationships, or insightful approaches to complex issues, you can follow Khayyam's lead by creating something meaningful out of struggle. In doing so, you not only strengthen your own resilience, but also offer something nourishing to the broader human community, something that inspires, enlightens, or uplifts. The first step is to recognize the challenges in your life, not just as burdens, but as potential sources of creative energy. Reflect on the hardships you face, whether in love, work, health, or purpose, and ask how they might shape artistic expression, fresh ideas, or deeper understanding that could resonate with others facing similar trials. Like Khayyam, you have the power to turn personal adversity into a source of wisdom and beauty, enriching the ongoing human dialogue about how to live with courage and grace in a difficult world. This is not about running from reality, but about engaging it more fully, seeking out, even in the darkest times, the sparks of meaning and the possibility of transformation. So, Part 18, Mastering Time Management Across Multiple Endeavors. Omar Khayyam's extraordinary achievements in mathematics, astronomy, philosophy, and poetry reveal a profound mastery of time management. His ability to navigate and make meaningful progress across several intellectually demanding domains simultaneously, without sacrificing quality or succumbing to burnout, was a testament to his strategic approach to balancing complex tasks. Khayyam did not merely work longer hours. He worked with precision and intention. He understood how different pursuits could reinforce one another rather than compete for his attention. His example teaches us how to engage deeply in multiple fields while preserving excellence and avoiding the pitfalls of being overextended or superficial. As a mathematician, Khayyam engaged in long-term, abstract problem-solving that often spanned months or even years. His work on cubic equations, particularly his geometric methods, required him to invent entirely new techniques, involving substantial experimentation and refinement before they could reach completion. Concurrently, his astronomical endeavors called for ongoing observations and meticulous calculations, aligned with specific celestial patterns and seasonal rhythms. In contrast, his literary and philosophical pursuits demanded a different mode of thinking: emotional depth, intuitive insight, and aesthetic sensitivity. Rather than viewing these activities as distractions from one another, Khayyam found ways to align them, allowing his efforts in each domain to complement and enrich the others. His mathematical clarity enhanced the precision of his astronomical work. Likewise, the rhythms of the cosmos shaped his meditations on time, change, and human existence. His poetic vision sharpened his ability to recognize elegant solutions in mathematics, while his training in logic and reason brought structure and discipline to his artistic expression. Through this synergy, the time he invested in any one area often propelled progress in others, rather than detracting from them. Khayyam also possessed a keen awareness of how to align various tasks with his mental energy and cognitive state throughout the day and across seasons. He likely reserved peak cognitive hours, such as mornings, for intense mathematical work requiring focused attention. Astronomical observations, dictated by the timing of celestial phenomena, had to be scheduled for specific nights or seasons. Meanwhile, poetry and philosophical reflection were better suited to contemplative periods, when he could draw on inner reflection and emotion rather than analytical reasoning. His refined approach to time management extended to the challenge of sustaining long-term projects while remaining open to creative breakthroughs and spontaneous insights. His scientific inquiries often unfolded through prolonged periods of methodical effort, punctuated by sudden bursts of innovation that demanded uninterrupted focus. Khayyam shaped his schedule with enough flexibility to respond to these creative surges, all while ensuring consistent progress on routine aspects of his work. He recognized that true productivity respects the natural ebb and flow of creative energy. Forcing output into inflexible schedules would have stifled the organic rhythm of inspiration and discovery that fueled his most significant contributions. Efficiency was another cornerstone of Khayyam's effectiveness. He systematically built upon his earlier results, thereby eliminating the need to constantly reinvent his methods. His mathematical findings streamlined his astronomical computations, accelerating his progress. His philosophical thinking provided conceptual frameworks to interpret observations, sparing him from starting anew with each inquiry. Furthermore, his growing stature enabled collaborations with fellow scholars and gave him access to valuable knowledge and resources, further enhancing his productivity. Most crucially, Khayyam sustained his focus and drive across various demanding projects because each endeavor held deep personal significance. He was driven not by external accolades or the desire to impress, but by a sincere curiosity and passion for the mysteries he was exploring. This internal motivation enabled him to remain committed through periods of slow progress or limited public recognition, continually fueled by the joy of discovery itself. His work was guided by a deep curiosity and a sincere pursuit of truth, motivations that proved more enduring and effective than ambition or obligation alone. This approach made his achievements not only more sustainable, but also more impactful. In our own time, Khayyam's method of managing multiple responsibilities provides valuable lessons for balancing the increasingly complex demands of modern professional and personal life. We often find ourselves juggling career goals, family responsibilities, personal passions, and commitments to our communities, all while striving to maintain high standards and avoid burnout. It's easy to fall into the trap of focusing exclusively on one area while neglecting others, or conversely, scattering our attention so widely that meaningful progress becomes difficult. Khayyam's life demonstrates that such trade-offs aren't inevitable if we learn to integrate our efforts strategically. The key lies in recognizing how various aspects of our lives can reinforce each other instead of competing for our attention. Start by exploring the ways in which your different projects and roles can complement and strengthen one another. Seek out transferable skills, knowledge, and resources that connect your professional, personal, and community endeavors. Think about how your work experiences might enrich your hobbies, how creative pursuits can sharpen your analytical thinking, and how volunteering might bring fresh insight and energy to your career path. Design your schedule to align with your natural rhythms and the unique demands of each activity, rather than forcing all tasks into a rigid, uniform structure. At the same time, stay grounded in what makes each area of your life personally meaningful and fulfilling. Let your efforts be driven by intrinsic interest and authentic values, rather than by external pressures or the need for recognition. By taking this approach, just as Khayyam did, you'll be able to sustain your momentum across various commitments with more clarity and purpose. Internal motivation creates a more resilient source of energy and makes it easier to weave together your different responsibilities in ways that support your broader growth and impact. The aim isn't to do everything, but to engage deeply with what matters most, bringing excellence and coherence, not stress and superficiality, to the full scope of your endeavors. Part 19. Cultivating Emotional Resilience Through Philosophical Insight. Omar Khayyam achieved a profound form of emotional resilience, not by avoiding hardship or repressing negative emotions, but by cultivating a deep philosophical perspective that enabled him to interpret life's difficulties within a broader context of meaning and purpose. His reflections on existence, the link between personal experience and the larger rhythms of the cosmos, and the limits and potential of human agency, gave him the inner strength to remain balanced in the face of adversity. This fusion of emotional depth with philosophical contemplation offers us a vital model for resilience, one that does not rely on denial or escapism, but on understanding our position within a vast and interconnected reality. Khayyam's approach demonstrates that emotional well-being and philosophical insight can mutually reinforce one another when harmoniously combined. His resilience was rooted in an honest reckoning with the uncertainties and limitations inherent in the human condition. Instead of seeking comfort in illusions or rigid assurances, he learned to embrace uncertainty and act meaningfully, even without control over final outcomes. His poetry reflects a mind that had confronted the fear of impermanence and discovered how to value life's beauty without clinging to guarantees or permanence. This philosophical clarity released emotional energy that might otherwise have been drained in resisting the inevitable. His grasp of the vastness of cosmic time and his scientific understanding of human existence enabled him to frame his personal struggles within a much larger narrative, without diminishing the real pain those struggles could cause. When faced with political oppression or public disapproval, he could draw on this expanded outlook to see such trials as fleeting moments within grander cycles of change and evolution. Importantly, this cosmic viewpoint did not lead him to detach from the present. On the contrary, it helped him engage with his circumstances with a sense of proportion, preventing overreaction and allowing for a more measured emotional response. He recognized the seriousness of his problems without letting them grow so large in his mind that they paralyzed his ability to act or create. His philosophy helped him discern which aspects of a situation he could shape and which were beyond his control. This discernment allowed him to direct his emotional energy toward what truly mattered. He knew he couldn't dictate political outcomes, sway public opinion, or determine how his work would ultimately be received. But he could govern how he responded, the depth of his attention, and his commitment to living by his principles. This awareness of the limits of personal power reduced needless frustration and worry, while enhancing his ability to act meaningfully within whatever boundaries life imposed. He accepted responsibility for what lay within his reach and learned to let go of attachments to results that depended on variables outside his influence. His blend of rational thinking and emotional awareness fortified his resilience further, enabling him to trace the origins of his feelings and understand their significance. Rather than being swept away by fear, sorrow, or anger, he trained himself to observe these emotions with interest, recognizing them as natural responses that carried insights about his inner needs and core values. This philosophical attitude toward emotion allowed him to grow from even the most painful feelings rather than becoming trapped in them. It empowered him to face hardship with wisdom and clarity. He recognized emotions as temporary phenomena, valid and worthy of acknowledgement, but not necessarily authoritative in guiding his choices or actions. Khayyam's strength also lay in his ability to derive meaning and fulfillment from his intellectual and creative pursuits, regardless of external circumstances. Even during times of political instability or social exclusion, he drew deep contentment from the pursuit of mathematical truth, the observation of the stars, and the crafting of poetry. These endeavors offered a wellspring of purpose that did not depend on external praise or ideal conditions, but flowed from his intrinsic engagement with meaningful questions and creative challenges. This internally grounded sense of purpose shielded him from the instability of public opinion and fortune, allowing him to remain anchored in what truly mattered to him. His philosophical grasp of mortality played a crucial role in shaping his emotional strength, allowing him to maintain a clear sense of perspective during both joyful and painful moments. Recognizing the transient nature of all experiences enabled him to savor happiness without becoming overly attached and to endure hardship without falling into despair, knowing neither would last forever. His embrace of impermanence rather than causing instability became a foundation of inner steadiness. By letting go of the futile pursuit of permanence and the fear of inevitable change, he freed himself from the exhausting cycle of resistance. Instead of relying on fixed circumstances for a sense of safety, he cultivated confidence in his ability to respond creatively and adaptively to whatever life presented. Today, this aspect of Khayyam's worldview presents a compelling alternative path for building emotional resilience, one grounded in philosophical depth. Khayyam's model stands in contrast to the hollow positivity that ignores life's genuine difficulties, and to therapeutic methods that prioritize symptom management over cultivating lasting insight. In modern times, we often try to build resilience through distraction, consumerism, or a kind of forced optimism that avoids engaging with life's deeper uncertainties. At other times, we become overly reliant on emotional regulation tools, forgetting that these techniques alone cannot replace a clear, reflective understanding of life's bigger picture. What Khayyam demonstrates is a more holistic approach, one that weaves philosophical inquiry into the development of emotional strength. It begins with asking foundational questions about the nature of change, the limits of personal control, the true meaning of success and failure, and how individual experience fits into broader patterns of existence. This isn't about subscribing to a specific philosophy, but rather about engaging critically with the core beliefs and assumptions that influence how we emotionally respond to life's challenges. Reflect, too, on how your scientific understanding of time, space, and the laws of nature might shift your view of personal adversity. Consider how anchoring yourself in clear values and a strong sense of purpose can offer stability amid chaos or unpredictability. Like Khayyam, you can cultivate resilience not by avoiding hardship or chasing illusions of permanence, but by nurturing a form of wisdom that allows you to meet life's trials with clarity, composure, and intention. Part 20. Harmonizing Solitude and Social Engagement. Omar Khayyam demonstrated a profound ability to balance the contrasting demands of seclusion, which fosters deep intellectual labor, and social engagement, which anchors thought in real-world relevance and offers opportunities for collaboration and contribution. Throughout his life, he transitioned between periods of intense private study and moments of active involvement in public and academic circles. This equilibrium between inward reflection and outward connection enabled him to cultivate groundbreaking ideas through solitary inquiry, while simultaneously refining and expanding those ideas through dialogue with others. These interactions provided critical challenges, fresh perspectives, and affirming support. His life illustrates that true intellectual and personal growth does not flourish in total isolation, nor in constant sociability, but in the thoughtful integration of both. Khayyam's work in mathematics and astronomy, for example, demanded extended intervals of uninterrupted concentration. Solving cubic equations through geometric methods required meticulous experimentation with various models and mathematical techniques, work that was only possible through focused solitude. Similarly, his celestial observations required nights of detailed tracking and recording, free from the distractions of social obligations. These solitary efforts were not retreats from human society, but essential precursors to innovations that ultimately served the broader community through enhanced mathematical understanding and more precise calendars. However, Khayyam also recognized that isolation alone could lead to intellectual stagnation, if not balanced with engagement. His participation in scholarly projects such as calendar reform and his role in the court created space for real-world testing of theoretical insights and for adapting his knowledge to meet practical needs. Dialogues with fellow scholars and students pushed him to communicate his ideas more clearly and to entertain viewpoints he might have overlooked while working alone. Far from being a hindrance, these social exchanges enriched his thinking by adding context, stimulating new lines of inquiry, and reinforcing the relevance of his discoveries. Khayyam's poetry, too, reflects this dynamic interplay between inward contemplation and outward connection. Though his verses were born from private reflections on life's transience, beauty, and purpose, they resonate because they touch upon universal human experiences. His capacity to express such themes with authenticity was deepened by his willingness to form meaningful relationships, even while knowing their impermanence. His philosophical emphasis on living fully in the present arose from both solitary pondering and shared moments of joy, conversation, and companionship. The tension between seclusion and community also shaped his approach to sensitive and controversial subjects. In solitude, he could think independently, free from societal pressure or ideological conformity. But he also understood the importance of engaging with others to refine his language, test his ideas, and determine the most constructive way to share challenging perspectives. Khayyam's ability to maintain autonomy of thought while remaining socially attuned depended on his careful discernment of when each mode, solitude or interaction, was most beneficial. Reports of his growing reclusiveness later in life suggest a possible shift toward isolation, likely reflecting the increasing complexity of his intellectual work. This change was less a withdrawal from people than an acknowledgement that different periods of life and different kinds of inquiry require different proportions of solitude and community. His choice to prioritize depth of thought over social acclaim reveals his dedication to meaningful contribution rather than popularity. Still, even in his most secluded years, his writings remain deeply human in their concerns and continued to inspire students and readers who extended his legacy into the wider world. The balance Khayyam maintained between solitude and engagement was not effortless. It required profound self-knowledge and interpersonal insight. Khayyam needed to develop a deep awareness of his own internal rhythms and requirements for different forms of time and interaction. He had to learn when to retreat into focused solitude for concentrated work and when to seek out others for dialogue, inspiration, and the practical application of his ideas. A key part of this process involved mastering the art of shifting seamlessly between solitary reflection and social engagement, without becoming either completely detached or overly reliant on external input and affirmation. In doing so, he also had to find ways to maintain meaningful relationships despite the irregularities in his availability. He learned to contribute within social contexts without compromising the authenticity of his intellectual perspective or diluting his integrity. In our present moment, where the modern world often pulls us toward either hyperconnectivity or defensive withdrawal, Khayyam's strategy offers valuable lessons on how to cultivate a balanced and intentional way of being. The rise of digital communication and social media has brought about unparalleled opportunities for connection and collaboration. However, these tools can also interfere with the prolonged solitude required for deep thinking and original creativity. At the same time, the fast pace and overwhelming complexity of contemporary life can lead to social fatigue, prompting many to disengage from genuine human connection altogether. Khayyam's example shows us that leaning too far in either direction, constant interaction or complete isolation, limits our capacity for authentic self-expression and meaningful contribution. To begin finding a healthier balance, it's essential to honestly evaluate how you currently divide your time between solitude and social interaction. Ask yourself whether both areas are receiving the attention they need to support your intellectual growth as well as your relationships and sense of belonging. In today's world, many individuals find themselves overstimulated by surface-level social contact, yet deprived of the quiet space needed for real mental nourishment. Others may spend ample time alone, but lack the enriching interactions that provide feedback, encouragement, and platforms for sharing their ideas. Like Khayyam, you may need to intentionally carve out time for both modes and develop the flexibility to shift between them in response to your evolving needs and goals. Instead of viewing solitude and social engagement as competing demands, consider how they might complement one another. Use your time alone to reflect on your interactions and to distill insights worth sharing. Then bring those insights into conversation with others to refine them, challenge your assumptions, and uncover new directions for thought and exploration. This cycle, solitude feeding social engagement and vice versa, can deepen your creative, relational, and intellectual life. Whether you're pursuing creative endeavors, cultivating relationships, or striving to understand complex issues, you'll likely find greater effectiveness by combining the depth that emerges from solitary contemplation with the perspective and grounding that come from meaningful interaction with others. Keep in mind that the right balance between these two modes won't remain static. It will shift with your age, the demands of your projects, your personal circumstances, and your growing understanding of what you need in order to thrive. Following Khayyam's lead, you can learn to adjust this balance intentionally, rather than defaulting to patterns shaped by social expectations or technological distractions. The aim isn't to maintain a perfect equilibrium at all times, but to remain attentive to both aspects of your life, ensuring that neither your inner development nor your outward contributions are neglected over the long term. By consciously nurturing both solitude and connection, you will enrich your personal growth and increase your ability to make a lasting impact on the people and causes that matter most to you. Part 21. Let adversity be your mentor. Throughout his life, Omar Khayyam encountered a wide array of hardships, ranging from political turbulence and religious intolerance to public criticism and professional disappointment. Despite these trials, he consistently turned adversity into a source of insight and personal growth. Rather than succumbing to bitterness or defeat, Khayyam engaged with these challenges constructively, using them as tools for deeper understanding and transformation. His method of confronting hardship was neither one of passive resignation nor aggressive defiance. Instead, he chose an active and reflective path, seeking to uncover what each difficulty could reveal about himself, human behavior, and the world around him. This intentional mindset allowed him to extract meaning even from the harshest circumstances, emerging from them not weakened, but strengthened, with greater resilience, clarity, and a renewed ability to contribute. Khayyam's life serves as a powerful example of how adversity, when met with awareness and openness, can become one of our most effective teachers, not something merely to endure or resist. Khayyam's experiences with political uncertainty taught him profound truths about life's instability and the necessity of cultivating inner sources of strength and purpose. When his benefactor, Sultan Malik Shah, passed away and his political influence waned, Khayyam could have become disillusioned, angry that his loyal service and achievements were not enough to secure his position. Instead, he used this moment to reflect more deeply on the fleeting nature of external power and to detach emotionally from things beyond his control. His writings demonstrate a keen awareness of how swiftly fortune can turn and how fragile worldly success truly is, wisdom that could only have come from lived experience. Similarly, the religious and societal opposition he faced due to his unorthodox views taught him vital lessons in intellectual bravery and the consequences of challenging prevailing norms. Rather than retreating into silence or isolating himself defensively, Khayyam learned how to balance authenticity with social navigation. The accusations of impiety that culminated in his compelled pilgrimage to Mecca became a formative experience, revealing to him the complex mechanisms of social pressure and the challenge of maintaining one's intellectual honesty under duress. These trials enriched his understanding of both individual psychology and the broader dynamics of society, insights that mere academic study could never fully provide. His professional setbacks, too, became opportunities for meaningful growth. When his groundbreaking mathematical ideas were initially dismissed or misunderstood by peers, Khayyam gained essential lessons in how to communicate abstract concepts more clearly and how to build trust in novel methods. Facing skepticism toward his astronomical work, especially from defenders of traditional calendars, taught him how institutions often resist innovation. From this, he developed a strategic sense of how to introduce new ideas in ways that made their acceptance more likely. These moments shaped his practical wisdom in collaboration, persuasion, and organizational change, all of which increased his overall impact as a thinker and reformer. Perhaps most significantly, Khayyam's confrontations with death offered profound instruction on the essence of life and meaning. The passing of close friends, colleagues, and patrons could easily have driven him to emotional withdrawal or cynicism about human connection. Instead, these losses deepened his appreciation for beauty and companionship and taught him how to love and value others without demanding permanence or guarantees. His poetry on mortality expresses a depth of understanding that could only arise from direct encounters with grief and the vulnerability of caring deeply. Khayyam's reflections on death did not lead to despair, but to a richer, more present engagement with life. His method of learning from adversity was guided by several key principles that transformed his struggles into meaningful education. First, he nurtured a sense of curiosity about what each hardship might reveal, rather than focusing solely on overcoming it as quickly as possible. He recognized that difficulty often opens doors to insights unavailable during comfortable times, and that these hard-earned lessons can be invaluable, despite the pain they come wrapped in. Second, he sought to uncover underlying themes and consistent patterns in his challenges, instead of seeing each as a random or meaningless burden. Khayyam also maintained a wide perspective, placing his personal troubles within the broader sweep of human history and cosmic development. His scientific understanding of nature and his historical awareness helped him see his own hardships not as personal failings or divine punishment, but as part of larger, universal cycles. Khayyam gained a deeper understanding of adversity by viewing it through a wider lens, one that helped him learn important lessons without being consumed by hardship. This outlook enabled him to retain a sense of direction and optimism, even in the midst of challenging times. He came to see painful experiences not as defining setbacks, but as temporary moments within a broader journey of personal evolution, discovery, and growth. Rather than simply enduring hardship or repeating ineffective methods, Khayyam actively explored new strategies and perspectives. When a mathematical problem resisted one solution, he didn't persist with the same failed approach. Instead, he reimagined the problem using alternative geometric configurations. Similarly, when dealing with social pressures, he didn't cling to responses that left him vulnerable or disconnected. He adapted, crafting new methods that allowed him to remain true to himself while still navigating the demands of social life. This spirit of experimentation turned adversity into a proving ground for new skills and approaches, each of which strengthened his ability to handle future challenges. Today, Khayyam's mindset offers a powerful model for facing the inevitable difficulties that come with living a life of meaning and purpose. Too often, we treat challenges as urgent problems to be solved or barriers to be removed as quickly as possible. In doing so, we frequently miss out on the growth and learning that only come through struggle. At other times, we become so caught up in the emotional weight of hardship that we fail to uncover the lessons these moments might carry. Khayyam's life presents a more nuanced path, one that accepts the reality of pain and difficulty while still recognizing the unique opportunities they offer for insight and development. When you find yourself in the midst of a significant challenge, start by asking what the experience might be revealing. What could it teach you about your own character, about the people around you, or about the workings of the world? What deeper understanding of human nature, social interaction, or real-world problem-solving might only be accessible through first-hand experience? Lessons that no book or classroom could provide. Try to identify recurring themes or underlying principles that could apply not just to the current issue, but to other aspects of life as well. Keep a sense of proportion by placing your struggles in the wider framework of human experience and growth. Avoid interpreting adversity as proof of personal inadequacy or as some unique misfortune aimed only at you. Treat challenges as experiments. Instead of resigning yourself to pain or clinging to approaches that clearly don't work, explore new responses and strategies. Let hard times become moments for discovering hidden strengths, refining your values under pressure, and developing capabilities you might not have otherwise known you possessed. Like Khayyam, you can reshape adversity into a wellspring of insight and resilience, transforming it into a force that strengthens your impact on both your own life and the lives of those around you. This does not mean you should seek hardship for its own sake. Rather, it means embracing the challenges that inevitably arise, and especially those you've already committed to facing, as opportunities to extract meaning, growth, and lasting value. Part 22. Nurturing lifelong wonder and curiosity. Omar Khayyam exemplified a profound and enduring sense of wonder that persisted throughout his lifetime. This deep curiosity fueled his groundbreaking work in mathematics and astronomy, and also inspired his poetic meditations on beauty, purpose, and the nature of existence. His fascination with the world was not a naive impulse carried over from youth, but a cultivated intellectual and emotional posture, one he recognized as central to both learning and living meaningfully. Rather than viewing curiosity and wonder as indulgences suited only to those with free time, Khayyam embraced them as essential human faculties. He demonstrated that these qualities enrich every part of life when consciously developed and maintained. By treating life as a continuous source of profound questions and awe-inspiring discoveries, he turned ordinary experience into an ongoing journey of personal growth and imaginative exploration. Khayyam's interest in mathematics was rooted in a sincere wonder at the intricate harmony hidden within numbers and shapes. His pioneering work on cubic equations arose not from routine academic obligation, but from a deep fascination with the potential connection between algebraic reasoning and geometric insight, territory that few had dared to explore. This curiosity enabled him to perceive patterns overlooked by more conventional thinkers and to endure the long, demanding experimentation necessary for innovative breakthroughs. His mathematical contributions were born from a passion for abstract ideas, rather than from mere technical mastery or procedural analysis. The same spirit infused his work in astronomy, where his awe for the vastness and order of the cosmos drove him to uncover patterns in celestial motion with remarkable precision. Khayyam's extraordinarily accurate calculations of the solar year were not merely motivated by a need to correct the calendar. They reflected a profound reverence for the human capacity to comprehend and quantify cosmic rhythms with extraordinary accuracy. His patient dedication to years of meticulous observation was driven by a hunger to understand the universe as it truly is, not to settle for inherited assumptions or traditional estimates. This sense of cosmic wonder gave him both intellectual perspective and spiritual insight. It deepened his awareness of consciousness itself as an extraordinary phenomenon that allows finite human beings to engage with the timeless truths of nature and mathematics. His poetry reveals an individual who remained perpetually inquisitive about the core mysteries of life, rather than accepting dogma or retreating into cynicism. His verses grapple with mortality, love, beauty, and meaning not as tired philosophical exercises, but with the vitality of someone approaching these subjects anew, even after decades of contemplation. His ability to revisit familiar questions with fresh eyes led to continual discovery and prevented his thought from becoming stagnant or rigid with age. Khayyam's wonder extended into his understanding of other people as well. He resisted the temptation to grow disillusioned with human nature or to classify individuals in simplistic terms. Instead, he remained intrigued by the depth and variety of human personality. His reflections on friendship reveal a genuine sense of awe at the mystery of human connection. The astounding fact that distinct individuals can bridge the solitude of consciousness to care for and understand one another. This interpersonal curiosity enriched his relationships and informed his deeper inquiries into empathy, language, and community. His reverence for life also embraced the everyday. Where others might have overlooked or dismissed simple pleasures, Khayyam found profound delight. His well-known verses celebrating bread, wine, and companionship express true amazement at the capacity for joy and beauty in the immediate moment. He found inspiration in the changing of the seasons, the shifting dance of light and shadow, the flavors of food, and the sounds of music. By meeting ordinary experiences with a sense of discovery, he transformed the mundane into the extraordinary. This mindset kept his life from becoming repetitive or mechanical, and it provided a wellspring of creative and intellectual energy for both his scientific pursuits and his poetic works. Nurturing a sense of wonder and curiosity demands intentional focus and continuous effort, especially in the face of everyday pressures and the weight of accumulated experiences. These forces can gradually erode our ability to engage with the world in fresh, meaningful ways. Khayyam recognized that wonder is not a spontaneous or passive reaction. It is a cultivated perspective that must be actively sustained and regularly revived. He made a conscious habit of observing the ordinary with renewed eyes, seeking dimensions of familiar experiences that had previously gone unnoticed or unexamined. Through this disciplined attentiveness, he kept his mind open to learning and discovery throughout his life, resisting the pull of habitual thinking and perception. For Khayyam, fostering a sense of wonder also meant embracing what could be described as purposeful ignorance, an intentional recognition of how much remained unknown and how many questions had yet to be asked. Rather than feeling paralyzed or discouraged by the enormity of what he didn't understand, he found inspiration in it. This awareness of his own limitations became a source of motivation, opening up a boundless horizon of future inquiry and insight. His humility in the face of uncertainty did not dampen his intellectual drive, it amplified it. Through attentive observation, disciplined reasoning, and imaginative integration of ideas, he worked to expand the boundaries of knowledge. His ease with the unknown enabled him to remain intrigued by complex questions, even those without immediate or clear answers. He found fulfillment not just in arriving at conclusions, but in the exploration itself, the process of questioning, analyzing, and discovering. In our own time, Khayyam's attitude offers a powerful example of how to sustain mental vibrancy and emotional depth across a lifetime. Many of us grow up believing that curiosity and wonder are traits of childhood, inevitably dulled by experience and maturity. But Khayyam demonstrated that these qualities can evolve and deepen with age, provided we intentionally nurture them instead of letting them wither under the weight of routine or skepticism. In a world overflowing with information, yet often dominated by repetition and distraction, the deliberate cultivation of wonder is more vital than ever for maintaining creativity, ongoing learning, and an authentic connection to life. We can begin by consciously re-engaging with the familiar, examining everyday actions and common sights for overlooked details and new layers of meaning. When you eat, allow yourself to truly savor each bite, as though experiencing the flavors for the very first time. In your interactions with longtime friends or colleagues, stay open to their evolving thoughts, emotions, and viewpoints, rather than assuming you already know them inside and out. When encountering new concepts or data, whether in your career or personal life, approach them with a spirit of inquiry. Ask what implications or connections might still be hidden from view. Just as important is the active acknowledgement of how much lies beyond your current understanding. Instead of letting this unknown breed frustration or disinterest, use it as fuel for your intellectual and creative growth. Like Khayyam, you can learn to take joy in the vast landscape of the unexplored. The awareness of how much remains to be learned can become a source of energy, not anxiety. Whether you're engaging with scientific puzzles, artistic experiments, philosophical inquiries, or the challenges of daily living, a mindset rooted in curiosity and wonder will not only sharpen your capabilities, but also enrich your overall experience, whatever path you choose to follow. Part 23. Discovering the Sacred in the Everyday. Omar Khayyam possessed a rare gift, the ability to perceive deep spiritual truths and profound meaning within the fabric of ordinary life. For him, the sacred wasn't some distant or transcendent realm, but something revealed through attentive engagement with daily experiences. His poetry celebrates the simple joys, bread, wine, companionship, and nature, not merely as pleasures, but as windows into deeper truths and universal patterns. He viewed these everyday experiences as expressions of something far greater, linking personal moments to the vast, unfolding processes of the cosmos. This perspective allowed Khayyam to approach life with reverence and gratitude, even in times of difficulty. His sense of meaning wasn't rooted in rare achievements or ideal conditions, but in the ever-present potential for insight and wonder within the ordinary. This philosophy offers a timeless lesson. Spiritual richness is available to us not in distant ideals, but in the reality we already inhabit. Khayyam's scientific pursuits were deeply spiritual in nature, reflecting his belief that sacred patterns are embedded in the natural world. His mathematical work revealed elegant, abstract relationships lying beneath even the most practical of problems, an aesthetic beauty that hinted at deeper order. In astronomy, his careful observations unveiled vast cosmic rhythms and celestial structures, operating with awe-inspiring precision, yet open to human understanding. To Khayyam, engaging with mathematics and astronomy was not simply an intellectual exercise. It was a way of aligning with eternal truths. He found profound meaning in the fact that human consciousness could comprehend, however partially, the fundamental architecture of the universe. This union of science and spirituality underpinned his entire worldview. His poetic voice reveals someone who found sacred resonance in the most elemental human experiences: eating, drinking, conversation, and witnessing the beauty of nature. When he wrote of sharing bread and wine, he wasn't merely indulging in physical enjoyment. He was honoring these acts as symbols of our human capacity for appreciation, connection, and presence. Likewise, his reflections on blooming and fading flowers were more than descriptions of natural beauty. They expressed his deep understanding that transience itself is part of a greater cycle, a continual rhythm of birth, death, and renewal that speaks to the essence of existence. By immersing himself in the immediate moment with full awareness, Khayyam revealed that even life's simplest experiences carry profound depth, if only we resist the tendency to pass through them absent-mindedly. Central to his vision was an appreciation of consciousness itself, a phenomenon he regarded as both extraordinary and mysterious. His scientific insight into the scale of the cosmos and the complexity of natural systems made him keenly aware of how astonishing it is that matter can give rise to beings capable of thought, feeling, and reflection. This recognition transformed even the most mundane activities into sacred events. For Khayyam, the mere fact that the universe evolved conscious beings, capable of perceiving beauty, seeking truth, and creating meaning, was a source of continual wonder. From this viewpoint, every conscious moment held spiritual significance, simply because consciousness itself was a miracle beyond full comprehension. By uniting scientific inquiry with poetic sensibility, Khayyam developed a vision in which the personal and the cosmic were intertwined. He saw in the turning of the seasons not just changes in weather, but echoes of the same cyclical forces that direct the movements of planets and the life cycles of stars. Even human mortality to him was not an isolated end, but a participation in nature's grand choreography of transformation and renewal. Rather than reducing the sacred to abstraction, his scientific understanding deepened it. He found awe in the way individual experience could mirror eternal laws and connect to vast, impersonal systems that govern the universe. This way of perceiving the sacred in ordinary life extended into his approach to daily tasks and professional work. His mathematical computations and astronomical studies were more than obligations. They were acts of engagement with the mystery and order of the world. Teaching and collaborating with fellow scholars were not simply career responsibilities, but meaningful contributions to the ongoing expansion of human insight. Even the routine elements of his work held spiritual value when understood in the context of a larger purpose, one that linked his personal efforts to the timeless human quest for understanding and meaning. Through this lens, Khayyam lived a life where nothing was trivial and everything, however small, could be infused with purpose and reverence. This perspective calls for cultivating what can be described as sacramental perception, the capacity to recognize everyday experiences as expressions of deeper truths, rather than seeing them as merely functional or material occurrences. Khayyam developed the ability to engage with routine activities in a way that mirrored the attentiveness and reverence often reserved for formal religious or spiritual rituals. He came to realize that the sacred is not confined to specific places, times, or actions. Rather, the sacred can emerge anywhere, at any moment, if one learns to perceive clearly and value fully what is present. This inclusive view of the sacred made spiritual insight something continuously accessible, not limited to rare peak experiences or exceptional conditions. Khayyam's understanding also embraced the spiritual significance of human relationships and communal life, countering the notion that spirituality is solely a solitary or private endeavor. His poetry on friendship illustrates his recognition that authentic human bonds are part of a broader web of love and understanding, links that connect individuals to one another and to a greater unified reality. His deep appreciation for conversation, shared meals, and collaborative efforts reflected his insight that community itself is a sacred manifestation, one that reveals our capacity to transcend the solitude of isolated consciousness. By devoting care and awareness to the quality of his interactions, Khayyam uncovered sacred dimensions within social life that enriched his own journey and deepened his contribution to others. Today, Khayyam's path offers valuable insight for anyone seeking spiritual depth amid the ordinary flow of modern life. In a world where spiritual meaning is often associated with special rituals, unique experiences, or institutional religion, his life suggests a different approach, that the profound can be found by paying close attention to the experiences we are already having rather than chasing distant or exotic alternatives to the everyday. This shift in awareness can elevate daily life from repetitive habit to a continual source of awe, gratitude, and meaningful presence. You can begin by bringing mindful attention to familiar routines, seeking out the beauty, significance, and wonder that might otherwise go unnoticed. When you eat, reflect on the astonishing journey that transforms sunlight and soil into nourishment, and consider the miraculous fact that your body transforms that food into vitality and awareness. When engaging with others, be present to the mystery of communication, the miracle of connecting across the essential boundaries between separate minds. As you work on tasks or solve problems, recognize that your personal efforts are part of humanity's shared pursuit of knowledge, creativity, and progress. At the same time, nurture an awareness of how your individual experience is woven into broader natural and cultural systems that shape both the world and your place within it. Like Khayyam, you can use scientific understanding to deepen your sense of the sacred, rather than diminish it, by seeing how your consciousness plays a role in the grand unfolding of the cosmos, and how your choices contribute to the continued evolution of human insight and collective life. Such a way of seeing can turn even the simplest moment into an invitation to reverence and appreciation. It offers a sense of purpose and meaning grounded in the reality of everyday life, rather than relying on rare occasions or monumental accomplishments. The aim is not to escape ordinary life, but to uncover the profound richness and significance that already reside within it, waiting to be seen. Part 24. Cultivating Patience in the Pursuit of Long-Term Goals. Omar Khayyam exemplified an extraordinary level of perseverance in tackling long-range intellectual challenges, endeavors that often demanded years, sometimes decades, of concentrated effort before yielding meaningful outcomes. He understood that the most profound insights and enduring contributions rarely arise in sudden flashes of genius, but instead emerge gradually through steady refinement and accumulated understanding. His method for approaching long-term ambitions was anything but passive. Instead of simply waiting for results, Khayyam actively engaged with each stage of the process. He embraced incremental progress, recognizing that even small advancements help sustain energy and motivation when the ultimate goal remained far off. This deliberate patience enabled him to pursue projects that many others would have abandoned in frustration, and it allowed him to reach a level of depth that rushed efforts could never achieve. His disciplined approach offers timeless guidance for anyone striving towards significant achievements that demand long-term dedication. Khayyam's work in mathematics serves as a striking example of this sustained intellectual patience. His efforts to devise geometric solutions for cubic equations spanned years of trial and error, involving the exploration of numerous strategies and configurations. Rather than giving up when early experiments failed or results were slow to materialize, he continued to investigate with methodical rigor. Through this persistent process, he gradually uncovered mathematical structures and relationships that had not been evident in the beginning stages. His eventual breakthroughs were the product of long-term accumulation of knowledge, not spontaneous inspiration. Similarly, his astronomical studies were grounded in years of detailed observation and systematic refinement. The remarkable precision of his calculations for the solar year did not arise overnight. Instead, it was the result of painstaking measurements and analysis that corrected earlier inaccuracies and illuminated previously unnoticed celestial patterns. His role in reforming the calendar required extensive collaboration with other scholars and prolonged testing of new models against real-world seasonal and astronomical data. Such an achievement was only possible for someone willing to commit to a project far beyond the time frame of a single experiment or short-term inquiry. A key element of Khayyam's success lay in his ability to deconstruct complex goals into manageable segments. He structured his mathematical inquiries as a series of smaller problems, each offering its own milestones of discovery. These incremental achievements laid the groundwork for broader theoretical advances. In astronomy, his daily observations and calculations were valuable in their own right, yet they also contributed to the long-term understanding of larger cosmic cycles. This step-by-step strategy made enormous goals feel attainable, preserving his motivation and ensuring continuous progress over time. Moreover, he possessed the insight to maintain perspective during slow or uncertain periods. Khayyam recognized that intellectual advancement often unfolds in unpredictable rhythms, moments of rapid insight interspersed with times of stagnation or even regression. Rather than interpreting such lulls as failures, he viewed them as natural phases in the progression of complex work. This mindset allowed him to persist through temporary setbacks without losing sight of his overarching aims. This enduring patience was also rooted in his ability to derive satisfaction from the process itself. He did not rely solely on the completion of grand objectives to feel fulfilled. Instead, he found joy and meaning in the very act of inquiry. His fascination with abstract patterns and problem-solving made his mathematical efforts intrinsically rewarding, even when solutions remained elusive. Likewise, his ongoing observations of the stars brought daily moments of wonder, enriching his life regardless of their eventual scientific significance. Through his example, Omar Khayyam teaches us that sustained commitment, strategic progress, and intrinsic motivation are vital in the pursuit of long-term goals. His life's work illustrates how patience, far from being passive, can be a powerful force driving meaningful and lasting achievement. This deep sense of intrinsic motivation enabled a sustainable commitment over the long term. Rather than relying solely on external rewards or dramatic milestones, his motivation was rooted in a sincere engagement with ideas and activities that held personal meaning. By weaving together multiple long-range pursuits, he cultivated a kind of resilience. When progress in one area stalled, perhaps due to an especially difficult mathematical problem, he could turn to other endeavors, such as observing the stars or composing poetry, where forward movement might come more readily. In times when external factors made scientific work difficult, he redirected his focus to philosophical writing and contemplation. These alternative outlets allowed him to continue advancing his intellectual development, albeit along a different path. Because his commitments spanned diverse fields, he rarely found himself entirely at a standstill. Even when specific projects encountered obstacles, he nearly always had something meaningful to pursue. His perspective on long-term work was grounded in a clear-eyed understanding of what could realistically be accomplished within the span of a human life and the limitations of available resources. He recognized that, however impactful, an individual's achievements were inherently finite, and that the most important work often spanned generations, requiring the sustained efforts of many. This understanding freed him to concentrate on making the most valuable contribution he could during his lifetime, while embracing the fact that broader goals would depend on others continuing the work after him. Instead of feeling discouraged by the boundaries of personal achievement, he took satisfaction in being part of collective efforts that extended beyond any one person's capacity or lifespan. Today, his approach offers vital lessons for how we might cultivate patience in the pursuit of long-term goals, especially in a world increasingly dominated by the expectation of instant outcomes and rapid success. Our culture often encourages unrealistic ideas about how quickly significant results should be realized, which can cause people to abandon promising projects prematurely when early progress seems slow. Social media and digital platforms bombard us with stories of seemingly effortless, rapid success, distorting our perception of what normal timelines for meaningful work actually look like. In contrast, Khayyam's life reminds us that the most valuable and enduring accomplishments typically evolve through years, sometimes decades, of steady, committed effort, not through sudden breakthroughs. To follow his example, begin by identifying goals and endeavors that genuinely matter to you, and that you expect will require sustained dedication over extended periods, whether that's months, years, or decades. These might include professional goals such as mastering a complex discipline, creative ambitions like authoring a book or producing artwork, personal aspirations such as cultivating lasting relationships or growing in wisdom, or service-oriented aims like contributing to social causes or addressing challenges within your community. For each long-term goal, design strategies that break down the overarching vision into smaller, manageable milestones. These intermediate steps provide regular moments of progress and satisfaction, helping to sustain momentum while keeping you connected to the broader purpose. Develop systems to track and celebrate incremental achievements, which can reinforce motivation even when the ultimate goal remains far in the distance. Equally important is nurturing a sense of intrinsic motivation, finding meaning in the process itself rather than relying solely on recognition or final results for fulfillment. Like Khayyam, strive to immerse yourself in the daily routines and tasks that drive your goals forward, and learn to appreciate the growth, insights, and transformation that occur along the journey. Stay grounded in a realistic understanding of the time required for meaningful achievement, and resist societal pressures that push for speed over depth. Patience in pursuing long-term goals isn't about waiting passively. It's about remaining actively engaged in purposeful work, building steadily toward outcomes that matter precisely because they cannot be rushed. Part 25. Leaving a Legacy Through Authentic Contribution. Omar Khayyam's enduring impact across diverse disciplines and cultures illustrates the profound influence that arises when one follows their true passions and innate abilities. Rather than seeking fame or deliberately constructing a legacy, Khayyam pursued the work that genuinely interested him. Nearly 900 years after his passing, his mathematical theories continue to shape modern algebra, and his astronomical work still plays a role in the development of calendar systems. His poetry, too, remains deeply moving to readers across the globe. This lasting relevance wasn't the result of a deliberate campaign to secure a place in history, but rather the natural outcome of work fueled by sincere curiosity, a commitment to truth, and a devotion to authentic expression. Khayyam's life teaches us that the most enduring legacies stem from the quality of our current efforts, not from our desire to be remembered. Khayyam's contributions to mathematics were born out of a deep personal fascination with complex problems, not out of a desire to impress his peers or cement his status. His groundbreaking work on geometric solutions to cubic equations represented a leap forward in algebraic thinking. However, he pursued these ideas simply because he was captivated by the mathematical concepts themselves. The far-reaching influence of his work emerged as a consequence of its originality and rigor, not its intent. By immersing himself in the exploration of mathematical truths, he uncovered insights that would serve future generations of mathematicians long after his time. Similarly, his achievements in astronomy were rooted in a sincere desire to understand celestial patterns and enhance human comprehension of time, not in an effort to earn acclaim as a great astronomer. His remarkably accurate calculations of the solar year and the enduring utility of the Jalali calendar highlight his dedication to meticulous observation and analytical precision. These accomplishments were driven by his intellectual curiosity and a desire to serve practical human needs, not by aspirations for legacy or recognition. His meaningful contributions to astronomy arose from the integrity of his work, not from efforts at self-promotion. Khayyam's poetic legacy provides an even clearer example of how sincere creative expression can surpass cultural and temporal boundaries, speaking to the universal human condition. The Rubaiyat, his most famous collection, was born out of personal contemplation on themes such as mortality, uncertainty, beauty, and purpose. He wrote not for a global audience, but to articulate his own reflections, shaped by the world he lived in. Yet the raw honesty and emotional depth of his poetry allowed it to transcend time and geography. Readers from vastly different cultures and historical periods have found themselves reflected in his verses. The widespread translation and continued popularity of his work affirm the power of genuine, heartfelt artistry over strategic attempts to achieve relevance. Khayyam's philosophical impact is perhaps the most intricate, as it was not formalized into a single doctrine, but instead expressed organically through his interwoven pursuits in science, mathematics, and poetry. His efforts to harmonize logic and emotion, navigate uncertainty, uphold intellectual honesty under pressure, and discover meaning in fleeting beauty still offer insights to modern readers facing similar existential dilemmas. This philosophical influence did not emerge from an intentional attempt to found a school of thought, but from the way he consistently embodied a thoughtful and sincere way of living amid a complex world. His life itself stands as a lesson in integrating diverse forms of knowledge and reconciling multiple dimensions of human experience. Ultimately, Khayyam's lasting influence shows how authentic work naturally overcomes the boundaries of discipline and culture. Because his contributions were rooted in a genuine engagement with fundamental questions about mathematics, time, meaning, and beauty, they have remained relevant across eras, disciplines, and societies. His innovative algebraic methods influenced mathematical progress in cultures that had no connection to Persian poetry. At the same time, his poetic meditations on death and purpose resonated with people unaware of his scientific brilliance. This ability to impact varied audiences stemmed from his focus on universal patterns and timeless questions, rather than on surface-level or culturally specific goals. Khayyam's enduring influence proves that significant contributions can be made even under less than ideal circumstances. Despite facing political turmoil, religious oppression, and social opposition, any of which could have halted or muted his work, he created ideas and art of lasting relevance. His life illustrates that sincere dedication to truth, beauty, and human insight can transcend external obstacles, regardless of how limiting they may seem. His achievements weren't born from a quest for validation or the pursuit of ideal conditions, but rather from an intense personal engagement with meaningful questions. The timeless nature of his work stemmed from this deep internal drive, not from favorable surroundings or support. In fact, Khayyam's legacy highlights a profound irony. Those who chase remembrance often leave little behind, while those devoted to excellence for its own sake frequently shape work that endures across ages. Though Khayyam was not oblivious to recognition, it never eclipsed his primary purpose: to explore and articulate truth with clarity and elegance. This hierarchy of values empowered him to prioritize integrity and quality over popularity or short-term gain. As a result, his choices naturally led to work that resonated across cultures and generations. His lasting impact was not the result of calculated efforts to secure his place in history, but rather the natural outcome of deeply valuable contributions. Today, his life offers vital insights for anyone hoping to leave a meaningful imprint through their work or actions. In today's culture of instant feedback and social media visibility, we often get caught up in the race for likes, shares, and fleeting recognition. The temptation is to focus on the reception of our work rather than its substance, to chase applause instead of pursuing our most sincere and thoughtful ideas. But Khayyam's example reminds us that this focus on external approval can erode the very essence that gives work enduring worth. Instead, we should turn our attention to the ideas, challenges, and creative pursuits that genuinely captivate us, those that feel meaningful regardless of the rewards they bring. By committing to these with patient discipline and a love of excellence, we cultivate depth and authenticity rather than producing with recognition in mind. From this place of honest engagement, valuable insights and contributions will emerge, perhaps unpredictably, but meaningfully nonetheless. Like Khayyam, you can shape a legacy not by obsessing over how you'll be remembered, but by focusing on the quality and integrity of the work you're doing now. It's important to realize that lasting contributions don't require monumental breakthroughs or widespread fame. What they do require is your full, sincere effort and unique perspective brought to bear on the opportunities and challenges you face. Whether your work lies in scientific discovery, artistic expression, entrepreneurship, service to your community, or simply in your relationships with those around you, its impact will be measured by the depth of your involvement and the authenticity you bring, not by how large or visible the result may be. Khayyam's life reminds us that meaningful contributions, regardless of the field, can create ripple effects that extend far beyond our view or control. The aim is not to achieve everlasting fame, but to take part while we can in the human journey toward truth, beauty, wisdom, and compassion. That in itself is a legacy worth leaving.